Hello, it's me again, Yahtzee Croshaw, and this is Gabriel.
Hello, it's me again, Gabriel. This is Yahtzee Croshaw.
Shut up, don't get us into a loop.
I'm confused.
And we're doing something a little bit different this week.
I'm scared.
An entirely audio thing. So all those people who just put these videos on and do something else in the background, your quid's in this week.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do a little thing involving the dramatic reading of a story called The Eye of Argon. Are you familiar with it?
Only what you told me a little bit last week.
It carries the reputation of being possibly the worst fantasy story ever written. A novella by one Jim Thies, T-H-E-I-S.
Is that his actual name? That sounds like a nom de plume.
That's the question, isn't it? Apparently he wrote this when he was 16 years old. It was published in a fanzine called Ozfan in 1970, and it has since become the centre of a sort of party game for people in the writing biz. And the game is simply to read it aloud without laughing. So I've actually already read the first section, so why don't you start, Gabriel? The rules are simple. Before I give you the tablet, the rules are, if you laugh, we pass it on. If you get to the end of the section, we'll pass it on. If there are spelling mistakes or punctuation mistakes, read it as it is, not as you assume it meant.
Okay, so kind of phonetic. We're not trying to interpret this.
Yes, and try to be a bit dramatic with it. Don't just blurb through it like
this isn't a lecture.
And don't think about what you're saying. All right, The Eye of Argon by Jim Thies, Part 1. Away you go.
Okie dokie. The weather-beaten trail wound ahead into the dust-racked climes of the barren land which dominates large portions of the Norgolian Empire. Age-worn hoofprints, smothered by the shifting sands of sifting sands of time.
You're laughing. I had a little laugh there.
Well, I said shifting, but I didn't realize my brain had corrected from sifting, so okay, I'll pass that on there.
Okay. Where were we?
Wow, you weren't wrong about the spelling mistakes.
Age-worn hoofprints, smothered by the sifting sands of time, shone dully against the dust-splattered crust of earth. The tireless sun cast its parching rays of incandescence from overhead, halfway through its daily revolution. Small rodents scampered about, occupying themselves in the daily accomplishments of their dismal lives. Dust sprayed over 3 heaving mounts in blinding clouds, I think he means horses, while they bore the burdensome cargoes of their struggling overseers. Prepare to embrace your creators in the Stygian haunts of hell, barbarian, gasped the first soldier. Gasped. Prepare to embrace your creators in the Stygian haunts of hell, barbarian. Only after you have kissed the fleeting stead of death, wretch, returned Grigner. A sweeping blade of flashing steel riveted from the massive barbarian's hide-enamelled shield as his rippling right arm thrust forth, sending a steel-shod blade to the hilt into the soldier's vital organs. The disemboweled mercenary crumpled from his saddle and sank to the clouded sward, sprinkling the parched dust with crimson droplets of escaping life fluid. What, did he jizz his pants? The enthused barbarian swivelled about, his shock of fiery red hair tossing robustly in the humid air currents as he faced the attack of the defeated soldier's fellow-in-arms. "Damn you, barbarian!" shrieked the soldier as he observed his comrade in death. A gleaming scimitar smote a heavy blow against the renegade's spiked helmet, bringing a heavy cloud over the Accordion's misting brain. Shaking off the effects of the pounding blow to his head, Grigner brought down his scarlet-streaked edge against the soldier's crudely forged hauberk, clanging harmlessly to the left side of his opponent. The soldier's stead whinnied as he directed the horse back from the driving blade of the barbarian. Grigner leashed his mount forward as the hoarsely piercing battle cry of his wilderness-bred race resounded from his grinding lungs. A twirling blade bounced harmlessly from the mighty thief's buckler as his rolling right arm cleft upward, sending a foot of blinding steel ripping through the Cimmerian's exposed gullet. a gasping gurgle from the soldier's writhing mouth as he tumbled to the golden sand at his feet and wormed agonizingly in his deathbed. What was that doing there? Grigner's emerald green orbs
All right.
Sorry, start on that sentence. Last paragraph on the page.
Oh, God. Grigner's emerald green orbs glared lustfully at the wallowing soldier struggling before his chestnut-swelled mount. His scowling voice reverberated over the dying form in a tone of mocking mirth. You city-bred dogs should learn not to antagonize your better. Reining his weary mount ahead, Grigner resumed his journey to the Norregolian city of Gorzam, hoping to discover wine, women, and adventure to boil the wild blood coursing through his savage veins. The trek to Gorzom was forced upon Grigner when the soldiers of Kryn were leashed upon him by a faithless concubine he had wooed. His scandalous activities throughout the Cimmerian city had unleashed throngs of havoc and uproar among its refined... Fuck.
Okay, you lost it there.
Yeah.
You were doing alright.
It stacks is the problem. It fucking stacks.
Right, where were we? His scandalous activities?
We'll start there.
His scandalous activities throughout the Cimmerian city had unleashed throngs of havoc and uproar among its refined patricians, leading them to tack a heavy reward over his head. He had barely managed to escape through the back entrance of the inn he had been guzzling in, as a squad of soldiers pounced upon him. After spilling a spout of blood from the leader of the mercenaries as he dismembered one of the officer's arms, he retreated to his mount to make his way towards Gorzom, rumoured to contain hordes of plunder, and many young wenches for any man who has the backbone to wrest them away. Chapter 2.
There we are, okay. Arriving after dusk in Gorzom, Grigner descended down a dismal alley, reining his horse before a beaten tavern. The red-haired giant strode into the dimly lit hostelry, reeking of foul odours and cheap wine.
Not everything has to have an adjective, Jim Thighs.
Oh, I know. The air was heavy with choking fumes, well, he disagrees, spewing from smouldering torches, encased within Thedan's earthen-packed walls. Tables were clustered with groups
How would they lighten the room if they were encased within the wall?
with groups of... it doesn't count if I'm laughing at something you're saying. Your interruptions don't count. Tables were clustered with groups of drunken thieves and cutthroats, tossing dice or making love to willing prostitutes.
Perhaps the riffing of the other person could be part of the challenge.
All right. Eyeing a slender female crouched alone at a nearby bench.
Was she having a shit?
Possibly. Grigner advanced, wishing to wholesomely occupy his time. The flickering torches...
I'll wholesomely occupy you.
I know. The flickering torches cast weird shafts of luminescence dancing over the half-naked harlot of his choice. Her stringy orchard twines of hair swaying gracefully over the lithe, opaque nose. What the fuck?
Opaque? That was the only thing he could think of to say about it.
As she raised a half-drained mug to her pale red lips. Glancing upward, the alluring complexion noted the stalwart giant as he rapidly approached. A faint glimmer sparked from the pair of deep blue ovals of the amorous female.
What was she...
Oh, fuck, that dialed up to 11 so fast. It's just been dumb and now eyes...
A faint glimmer sparked from the pair of deep blue ovals of the amorous female as she motioned toward Grigner, enticing him to join her. The barbarian seated himself upon a stool at the wench's side, exposing his body. Naked, save for a loincloth, brandishing a long steel broadsword. How was his loincloth brandishing the sword?
It's probably like tied to it by a little piece of twine. He just drags it around.
An iron spiraled battle helmet, and a thick leather sandals, to her unobstructed view.
The sandals, man. Chicks dig sandals.
Thou hast need to occupy your time, barbarian, questioned the female.
Oh god, she's retarded, thought Grignar.
Look at the punctuation on that sentence.
Oh, that is
They
fucking
put
glorious.
the question mark after questioned the female. Only if something worth offering is within my reach, stated Grignar, as his hands crept to embrace the tempting female, who welcomed them with open willingness.
Because she's a prostitute.
From where do you come, barbarian? And by what are you called? Gasped the complying wench.
Oh.
Sorry.
No, that's fair.
It was the complying wench.
Yeah.
That got me.
Like, I love that everything about this woman is, like, just willful, you know, because it's a fantasy novel.
Yeah. She's gonna split open down the middle at some point.
Okay, complying wench. Okay. I gotta read the rest of this one. From where do you come, barbarian, and by what are you called? Gasped the complying wench as Grignar smothered her lips with the blazing touch of his flaming mouth.
How was she talking then?
The engrossed Titan ignored the queries of the inquisitive female, pulling her toward him and crushing her sagging nipples in his yearning chest.
See, everything was fine except the sagging.
Yeah, that's the bit that got me too, because it's just, that's not, never mind, fuck it, it's your turn.
Give me. The engrossed Titan ignored the queries of the inquisitive female, pulling her towards him and crushing her sagging nipples to his yearning chest. Without struggle, she gave in. Yes, that's what that means. Winding her soft arms around the harshly bronzed hide. Harshly bronzed hide? I think I knew a guy by that name. The harshly bronzed hide of Grignar corded shoulder blades as his calloused hands caressed her firm protruding busts.
With the droopy nipples attached.
That she produced at that point, presumably. Yeah. One of Beethoven, one of Shakespeare. You make love well, wench, admitted Grignar.
Oh, fuck you, I had coffee in my mouth for that one.
Yeah, the admitted. There.
Oh, mother of God.
What's this, a job interview now?
You make love well, wench, admitted Grignar as he reached for the vessel of potent wine his charge had been quaffing. So there's a dude in the room drinking wine and watching this. A flying foot caught the mug Grignar had taken hold of, sending its blood-red contents sloshing over a flickering crescent, leashing tongues of bright orange flame to the foot of the trodden floor.
What was that crescent doing there?
I don't know, and there's, like, there's a colon there for no reason. Remove yourself, sirrah, the wench belongs to me, blabbered a drunken... Remove yourself, sirrah, the wench belongs to me, blabbered a drunken soldier, too far consumed by the influences of his vile brew to take note of the superior size of his adversary. Grignar lithely bounded from the startled female, his face lit up to an ashen-red ferocity, and eyes locked in a searing, feral blaze toward the swaying soldier. "To hell with you, braggart!" bellowed the angered accordion as he hefted his finely honed broadsword. The staggering soldier clumsily reached toward the pommel of his dangling sword, but before his hands ever touched the oaken hilt, a silvered flash was slicing the heavy air. The thews of the savage's lashing right arm bulged from the glistening bronzed hide.
I had a feeling thews would come into this somewhere.
Same as glistening and bronzed in hide, as his blade bit deeply into the soldier's neck, loping off the confused head of his senseless tormentor.
Loping it off?
Yeah, that was...
like a sad dog.
With a nauseating thud, the severed oval toppled to the floor as the segregated torso of Grignar's bovine antagonist swayed, then collapsed in a pool of swirled crimson.
I'm not sure that was the word you meant.
Fuck you.
Eyes.
Fucking Jesus.
So where was bovine then? Oh yes. With a nauseating thud, show don't tell, Jim, the severed oval toppled to the floor. I thought we'd established ovals were eyes.
I know,
As the segregated torso of Grignar's bovine antagonist swayed, then collapsed in a pool of swirled crimson. What was it, an ice cream?
Raspberry swirl.
In the confusion, the soldiers' fellows confronted Grignr with unsheathed cutlasses.
Where is all this happening? Is he just fucking her, like, at the bar?
Yeah, just in the bar room, I guess. Where are the bouncers would be my question.
Watching.
In the confusion, the soldiers' fellows confronted Grignr with unsheathed cutlasses, directed towards the latter's scowling makeup. The slut should have picked his quarry more carefully, roared the victor in a mocking baritone growl. How many sluts are we dealing with here?
Is he, like, slut-shaming the soldier that he just killed?
Yeah, I think he's calling the soldier a slut.
Huh. Well, you know, at least that's a...
As he wiped his dripping blade on the prostrate form and returned it to his scabbard.
This has more closeted shit than your first adventure game.
The fool should have shown more prudence. However, you shall rue your actions while rotting in the pits, stated one of the sprawled soldier's comrades. So was the comrade sprawled or the soldier? Grignr's hand began to remove his blade from its leather housing, but retarded the motion, in face of the blades waving before his face. Dismiss your hand from the hilt, barbarian, or you shall find a foot of steel sheathed in your gizzard. Grignr weighed his position, observing his plight, whereupon, hyphenated, he took the soldier's advice as the only logical choice. To attempt to hack his way from his present predicament could only warrant certain death.
Such was the tale of Grignr the logician.
He was of no mind to bring upon his own demise if an alternate path presented itself. Everything's like a job interview for this guy.
This is, like, completely out of character already.
The will to necessitate his life forced him to yield to the superior force in hopes of a moment of carelessness later upon the part of his captors, in which he would effect a more plausible means of escape.
With an Uber.
So that's like the same sentiment referenced like 5 times in that paragraph.
This is fucking cosmic.
You may steady your arms. I will go without a struggle. Your decision is a wise one, yet perhaps you would have been better off had ye forced death. The soldier's mouth wrinkled to a sadistic grin of knowing mirth as he prodded his prisoner on with his sword point. After an indiscriminate period of marching, I don't think that was the word you meant, Jim, through slinking alleyways and dim moonlighted streets, the procession confronted a massive seraglio. The palace area was surrounded by an iron grating, with a lush garden upon all sides. The group was admitted through the gilded gateway, and Grignr was led along a stone pathway bordered by plush vegetation, lustfully enhanced by the moon's shimmering rays.
Sweet mother of God.
We don't know how vegetation works either, apparently. Upon reaching the palace, the group was granted entrance, and after several minutes of explanation, led through several winding corridors to a richly draped chamber. Confronting the group was a short, stocky man, seated upon a golden throne. Tapestries of richly draped, regal blue silk covered all walls of the chamber, while the steps leading to the throne were plated with sparkling white ivory. The man upon the throne had a naked wench seated at each of his arms, and a trusted adviser seated in back of him. I hope you're building a picture in your mind of all this.
Yeah.
At each corner of the chamber, a guard stood at attention, with upraised pikes supported in their hands, golden chainmail adorning their torsos, and barred helmets emitting scarlet plumes enshrouding their heads. Sounds like they're getting ready for a cricket match. The man rose from his throne to the dais surrounding it, his plush turquoise robe dangled loosely from his chunky frame. So what, is his knob hanging out? Is that what's supposed to take
yeah,
from
that's obviously. I think that's just taken as read.
The soldiers surrounding Grignr fell to their knees with heads bowed to the stone masonry of the floor, in fearful dignity to their sovereign, liege. I think Jim was copy-pasting from the thesaurus a little bit too hastily there. Explain the purpose of this intrusion upon my chateau. Yeah, he's
just a castle.
Yeah, he's thesaurus mad, is Jim Mathias. Your serenity, resplendent in noble grandeur, we have brought this yokel before you. open brackets. The soldier gestured towards Grigner, close brackets, for the redress or your all-knowing wisdom in judgment regarding his fate. Down on your knees, lout, and pay proper homage to your sovereign, commanded the pudgy noble of Grigner.
I imagine the wisdom is like a brain on a stick.
Oh boy. By the surly beard of Mrifk. Okay. Why don't you take over from the surly beard there?
Oh, Jesus. Okay. By the surly beard of Mrifk, Grignar kneels to no man, scowled the massive barbarian, and then indented for no identifiable reason. You dare to deal this blasphemous act to me? You are indeed brave, stranger, yet your valor smacks of foolishness. I find you to be the only fool sitting upon your pompous throne, enhancing the rolling flaps of your belly in the midst of your elaborate luxury and...
Shut up, Grigner.
The soldier standing at Grignar's side smote him heavily in the face with the flat of his sword, cutting short the harsh words and knocking his battered helmet to the masonry with an echo-ing clang.
Wait, hadn't the soldiers fallen to their knees?
Yeah, and that's not what smote means. The paunchy noble's sagging round face flushed suddenly pale. Not what that means. Then pastily lit up to a lustrous cherry radiance. That's an amazing... I'm reading that again. The paunchy noble's sagging round face flushed suddenly pale, then pastily lit up to a lustrous cherry red radiance.
Sounds like he's being described for an IKEA catalogue.
Yeah. His lips trembled with malicious rage while emitting a muffled sibilant gibberish.
Okay,
that's what I'm imagining.
Shut up!
His sagging flabs rolled like a tub of upset jelly, then compressed as he sucked in his gut in an attempt to conceal his softness. The prince regained his statue, having lost it just last week, then spoke to the soldiers surrounding Grignar, his face conforming to an ugly expression of sadistic humor. Take this uncouth heathen to the vault of misery, and be sure that his agonies are long drawn out before death can release him. Once again indented, and I don't know why.
Jim, run-on sentence thighs.
As you wish, sir. Your command shall be heeded immediately, answered the soldier on the right of Grignar as he stared into the barbarian's seemingly unaffected face.
What, were they on a date?
Yeah. The advisor seated in back of the noble, still.
Yeah, about this advisor. Where was he sitting again?
I'm guessing a saddle.
He's just sitting in a saddle on the back of the noble.
Yeah, I think the noble's like a, interponying sort of thing. He's probably wearing, like, this entire time he's probably dressed as a horse with, like, little hooves on and shit.
Yeah, I'm picturing the warden, I'm picturing the advisors being dressed like the warden from Super Jail. You laughed. Ha!
Oh, fuck.
Where were we? Oh yes, the advisor seated in the back of the noble slowly rose... Yeah, he is riding on the back. Slowly rose and advanced to the side of his master, who also happened to be there, motioning the wenches seated at his sides to remove themselves. He lowered his head and whispered to the noble, Eminence, the punishment you have decreed will cause much misery to this scum, yet it will last only a short time, then release him to a land beyond the sufferings of the human body. Why not mellow him in one of their subterranean vaults for a few days, then send him to life labour in one of your buried mines? Not one of your sky-going mines. Those are too nice.
My cloud mine.
To one such as he, a life spent in the confinement of the Stygian pits will be an infinitely more appropriate and lasting torture. The noble cupped his drooping double chin in the folds of his briming palm.
What?
Meditating for a moment upon the rationality of the counsellor's words, then raised his shaggy brown eyebrows and turned toward the advisor, eyes aglow. As always, Agufund, you
Fucking
speak
amazing.
with great wisdom. Your words ring of great knowledge concerning the nature of one such as he, saith, the king.
Jesus.
I thought he was just a noble, now he's a king.
He's been a noble, a prince, and a king.
He's been all over them.
Yeah, so I think he's got multiple titles. And I imagine now his eyebrows are like little corgis he's got stapled there.
The noble turned toward the prisoner with a noticeable shimmer reflecting in his frog-like eyes. Yeah, his whole face is a fucking petting zoo, isn't it?
Yeah.
And his lips contorting to a greasy grin. I have decided to void my previous decree. The prisoner shall be removed to one of the palace's underground vaults. There he shall stay until I have decided that he has sufficiently simmered. Whereupon he will be served on a bed of rice with some courgettes. No, whereupon he is to be allowed to spend the remainder of his days at labour in one of my mines. Upon hearing this, Grignr realized that his fate would be far less merciful than death to one such as he, who is used to roaming the countryside at will. A life of confinement would be more than his body and mind could stand up to. This type of life would be immeasurably worse than death. You don't labour the point, Grignr, mate.
I think it might be worse than death. Oh.
I shall never understand the ways if your twisted civilization. I simply defend my honour and am condemned to life confinement by a pig who sits on his royal ass, wooing whores, and knows nothing of the affairs of the land he imagines to rule. Lectures Grignr, ?
Grignr the logician, Grignr the statecrafter.
Enough of this. Away with the slut before I loose my control. Yeah, I don't think Jim knows what a slut is.
Yeah, or that you have to woo, like, you don't have to woo prostitutes. That's explicitly the point of prostitutes.
Well, I suppose you technically woo prostitutes, you just do it in a very specific way.
Ching. You slut, Grignr.
Seeing the peril of his position, for like the fourth time, Grignr searched for an opening. Crushing Prudence to the sword, he ploughed into the soldier at his left arm, taking hold of his sword, and bounding to the dais, supporting the prince... I never know how to pronounce that word. Bounding to the dais, supporting the prince before the startled guards could regain their composure. Agafund leaped Grignr and his sire, but found a sword blade permeating the length of his ribs before he could loose his weapon. How unfortunate that someone left it there.
Yeah.
The councillor slumped to his knees as Grignr slid his crimsoned blade from Agfund's ribcage. So Agfund was the councillor? Or is there two guys there now?
I think Agfund's the councillor.
The fat prince, demoted again, stood undulating in insurmountable fear. Yes, undulating. Before the edge of the fiery maned comet.
Huh?
Yeah, what was that doing there? His flabs of jellied blubber pulsating to and fro in ripples of flowing terror. I like to imagine there's some jolly circus music playing,
so it's undulating and
happening.
kind of going back and forward.
Yeah. Just his blubber was going...
Like a transformer made out of lava lamps.
Where is your wisdom and power now, your majesty? Growled Grignr. The prince went rigid. Yeah, that was a bit homoerotic.
I just imagine all of his blubber going and just stopping, like the blubber's frightened now.
I just think he got a stiffy. As Grignr discerned him glazing over his shoulder. He swlived to note the cause of the noble's attention, raised his sword over his head, and prepared to leash a vicious downward cleft, but fell short as the haft of a steel-rimed pike clashed against his unguarded skull. Then blackness and solitude, silence enshrouding, and ever peaceful reigned supreme. Oh, what a poet we've become. Before me, sirrah, before me as always. Ha, 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 nobly cackled. Chapter 3.
Okie fucking dokie.
If you've just tuned in, you're listening to the literary review.
Masterpiece literature with Gabriel Ignazzi.
Please continue.
Consciousness returned to Grignr in stigmatic pools as his mind gradually cleared of the cobwebs cluttering its inner recesses.
Yeah, Jim doesn't know what stigmatic means.
Nope. Yet the Stygian cloud of charcoal ebony remained.
Always with the Stygian with this guy.
An incompatible shield of blackness enhanced by the bleak absence of sound.
Incompatible to what? This has given me too much ammunition, I'm afraid.
It is... We started bad. We have transcended. We are somewhere else now.
You laughed.
I don't count that one. That was a smile.
Well,
and it was in discussion of the material, not because of the material.
Oh, fine.
Grignr's muddled brain reeled from the shock of the blow he had received to the base of his skull. The events leading to this predicament were slow to filter back to him. He dickered with the notion that he was dead and had descended or sunk, however it may be, to the shadowed land beyond the aperture of the grave, but rejected this hypothesis when his memory sifted back within his grips.
Okay, how many words was that sentence?
There's a fair bit.
Like a billion?
Yeah, there's a lot of just commering for no real reason, too. This was not the land of the dead. It was something infinitely more precarious than anything the grave could offer. Death promised an infinity of peace.
So he was on a narrow ledge, then?
Yeah. Not the finite misery of an inactive life of confined torture, forever concealed from the life-bearing shafts of the beloved rising sun.
That was just words after a while. It was just a pile of words.
Life-bearing shafts. The orb that had been before taken for granted, yet now cherished above all else, to be forever refused further glimpses of the snow-capped summits of his land of his birth, never again to witness the thrill of plundering unexplored lands beyond the crest of a bleeding horizon, and perhaps worst of all, the denial to ever again encompass the lustful excitement of caressing the naked curves of the body of a trim, yound wench.
Never once getting his rocks off. Got it.
Yeah. This was indeed one of the buried chasms of hell, concealed within the inner depths of the palace's despised interior, a fearful ebony chamber devised to drive to the brinks of insanity the minds of the unfortunately condemned.
He's just sitting there, just sort of looking around, just monologuing this to himself.
Through the inapt solitude of a limbo of listless, dreary silence.
I'm surprised he didn't work Stygian in there somewhere.
Yeah, he's branching out. A tightly wrung elliptical circle of torches cast their wavering shafts, prancing morbidly over the smooth surface of a rectangular, rigid altar.
So now there's a dance party going on.
Expertly chiseled forms of grotesque gargoyles traced the oblique rim protuberating the length of the grim orifice of death.
Okay, I was with it up to the oblique rim.
Yeah. Staring forever ahead into nothingness in complete ignorance of the bloody rites enacted in their presence. Do you have any idea where we are or what we're doing?
I presume we're in somewhere Stygian.
Yeah, like I'm having to read into this a lot to kind of gather what's going on.
Okay, seriously. I think we're in a dungeon and he's describing an altar.
Yeah, that's where I am too. Brown flaking stains decorated the golden surface of the ridge surrounding the altar, which banked to a small slit at the lower right-hand corner of the altar.
Sacrificial altar. Got it.
I think we're at the altar.
Yes.
The slit stood above a crudely pounded pail which had several silver mesh chalices hanging at its sides.
What?
Yeah, and the thing is, that was one sentence. That actually ended.
Okay.
That didn't just go on forever. Dangling at the rim of golden mallet, the handle of which was engraved with images of twisted faces and groved at its far end with slots designed for snug hand grip.
Yeah, descriptions aren't working out. Let's hope we get back to a dialogue scene soon.
Oh, lordy. There's nothing for a while. The head of the mallet was slightly larger than a clenched fist and shaped into a smooth oval mass. I didn't even know we were talking about a mallet.
Why are we describing a mallet?
I don't know.
What's the mallet for?
I think smacking heads. I'm having to make a lot of assumptions. Encircling the marble altar was a congregation of leering shaman. Eerie chants of a bygone age, originating unknown eons before the memory of man, were being uttered from the buried recesses of the acolytes' deep lings.
So did these guys object when Grignor was dragged in here?
I don't think they even noticed.
Don't just leave your garbage lying around.
Who's he, the new intern? Ornate robes of luscious purple satin enclosed their bulging torsos, attached around their waists with silvered silk lashes latched with ebony buckles in the shape of morose, mis-shaped skulls.
I was about to say something, but I forgot what the start of that sentence was by the end of it.
Dangling around their necks were oval-fashioned medallions held by thin gold chains, featuring in their centers blood-red rubies which resembled crimson fetish eyeballs.
Is he going to describe their sandals as well?
I'm presuming we're getting there. Cushioning their bare feet were plush, red felt slippers.
Fucking called it.
With pointed golden spikes protruding from their tips.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they need to put the boot in somewhere.
Situated in front of the altar and directly adjacent to the copper pail was a massive jade idol.
Yes,
a misshaped, hideous
now.
bust of the shaman's pagan deity. The shimmering...
How did Grignor know that?
I don't even know. He's got a lot of... I think he's got a long education, actually. I think he only decided barbarianing quite recently.
Yeah, he gives that impression.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's got a classical education.
He's probably on his, he's like a kind of a break.
Yeah, he's on his gap year.
Yeah. The shimmering green idol was placed in a sitting posture on an ornately carved golden throne raised upon a round, ivory-plated dais. The bulging arms and webbed hands resting on the padded arms of the seat. Its head was entwined in golden snake-like coils hanging over its oblong ears, which tapered off to thin hollow points.
Not to boast, but I'm sure I could have done this in a paragraph. It's an altar, there's cultists around it, and they're worshipping a big statue. Bam. Go.
Its nose was a bulging triangular mass.
Of course, we're going to describe every fucking feature on it, aren't we?
Yes, okay, so it's bulging.
Okay.
Sunken in at the sides with toe-gaping nostrils. Dramatic beneath the nostrils was a twisted, shaggy-lipped mouth, giving the impression of a slobbering, sadistic grimace.
Shaggy-lipped?
Everyone is like evil smiles in this.
So it had a beard. Is that what that means?
I think. At the foot of the heathen deity, a slender, pale-faced female, naked but for a golden jeweled harness enshrouding her huge, outcropping breasts, supported long silver laces which extended to her thigh, stood before the pearl-white field with noticeable shivers travelling up and down the length of her exquisitely moulded body.
Steady on, Jim.
Oi. Her delicate lips trembled beneath her soft, narrow hands as she attempted to conceal herself from the piercing stare of the ambivalent idol.
What about the cultists? Is she not worried about them?
I don't know. Glaring directly down toward her was the stony, cycloptic face of the bloated deity.
So we took a break describing the idol to describe the lady, but now we're back.
Now I'm back on the idol.
Now back above the, whatever it was, nostrils.
Yeah, wait for it, though. Gaping from its single oblong socket was a scintillating, many-fauceted scarlet emerald, a brilliant gem seeming to possess a life all of its own, the priceless gleaming stone, capable of domineering the wealth of conquering empires, the Eye of Argon.
Ah, title drop.
Now we're on to chapter 4. That was a chapter.
Huh. So, yeah, nothing happened there.
Nothing. That was one chapter that was describing a room.
All knowledge of measuring time had escaped Grigner. I think I know the feeling. When a person is deprived of the sun, moon, and stars, he loses all conception of time as he had previously understood it. It seemed as if years had passed, if time were being measured by terms of misery and mental anguish, yet he estimated that his stay had only been a few days in length.
I think measuring time by misery and mental anguish is actually a Windows option.
He has slept 3 times and had been fed 5 times since his awakening in the crypt. Well, at least they're taking care of him then.
Yeah.
However, when the actions of the body are restricted, its needs are also affected. Don't you get sciencey on me, Jim. The need for nourishment and slumber are directly proportional to the functions the body has performed, meaning that when free and active, Grigner may become hungry every 6 hours. So at least turning it as science hour, isn't it?
My God.
May become hungry every 6 hours and witness the desire for sleep every 15 hours, whereas in his present condition he may encounter the need for food every 10 hours, and the want for rest every 20 hours.
So he could probably figure out how long he's been out.
Well, yeah.
Like that's what I'm getting here.
I guess he's not that advanced in maths.
Grigner, no.
All methods he had before depended upon were extinct in the dismal pit. Hence, he may have been imprisoned for 10 minutes or 10 years. Oh, I see. Now we're drawing the conclusion at the end of this scientific paper.
This became an argumentative essay, I see.
Hence, he may have been imprisoned for 10 minutes or 10 years. He did not know, resulting in a disheartened emotion deep within his being. He was sad.
Has his facial hair grown? He might not have been there for 10 years.
The food, if you can honour the mouldering lumps of fetid mush to that extent, was borne to him by 2 guards, who opened a portal at the top of his enclosure and shoved it to him in wooden bowls.
Over 10 years, a pair of guards have been fucking him and feeding him miscarriages.
Retrieving the food and water bowels from his previous meal at the same time. Okay, you spelt that right earlier in the sentence, Jim. What happened? After which they threw back the bolts on the iron latch and returned to their other duties. Since deprived of all other means of nourishment, Grigner was impelled to eat the tainted slop, in order to ward off the pangs of starvation. Though as he stuffed it into his mouth with his filthy fingers, and struggled to force it down his throat, with a plunger, I'm thinking.
That's why you wipe with the left and eat with the right, Grigner.
He imagined it was that which had been spurned by the hounds stationed at various segments of the palace. And how did you know about those? There was little in the barren vault that could occupy his body or mind. He had paced out the length and width of the enclosure time and time again, and tested every granite slab which consisted the walls of the prison in hopes of finding a hidden passage to freedom.
He'd drawn his own Sudoku.
Ooh, he's played D&D before. All of which was to no avail other than to keep him busy and distract his mind from wandering to thoughts of what he believed was his future. He had memorized the number of strides from one end to the other of the cell, and knew the exact number of slabs which made up the bleak dungeon. He really is a maths student.
Yeah.
Numerous schemes were introduced by something, and alternately discarded in turn, as they succored to unravel to him no means of escape which stood the slightest chance of success. Yeah, feel free to diagram that sentence in your own time. Anguish continued to mount as his means of occupation were rapidly exhausted.
Well, he's counted the steps. I mean, what else are you supposed to do?
Suddenly, without no tithe, he was rooted from his contemplations, as he detected a faint scratching sound at the end of the crypt opposite him. Oh, is this going to turn into Count of Monte Cristo? I hope it does. The sound seemed to be caused by something trying to scrape away at the granite blocks the floor of the enclosure consisted of. The sandy scratching of something like an animal's claws. Grignor threw his hands up to shield his face and flung himself backwards upon his buttocks. Rather dramatic response.
I hear scratching.
A fuzzy form bounded to his hairy chest, burying its talons in his flesh while gnashing towards his throat. This took a bit of a turn.
Yeah.
With its grinding white teeth, its sour, fetid breath scorching the squirming barbarian's dilating nostrils. Grignor grappled with the lashing flexor muscles of the repugnant body of a gargantuan, brown-hided rat, striving to hold its razor teeth from his juicy jugular, as its beady grey organs of sight, so eyes, presumably,
Fucking amazing.
glazed into the flaring emeralds of its prey. Oh, so he was holding his emeralds out, apparently. Taking hold of the rodent around its lean, growling stomach with both hands, Grignor pried it from his crimson-rent breast. He's a robin now. Removing small patches of flayed flesh from his chest in the motion between the squalid black claws of the starving beast. Holding the rodent at arm's length, he cupped his right hand over its frothing face, constricting his fingers into a vice-like fist over the quivering head. I think he's killing it.
Yeah.
Retaining his grips on the rat, Grignor flexed his outstretched arms, while slowly twisting his right hand clockwise and his left hand counterclockwise motion. The rodent let out a tortured squall, drawing scarlet, with some crayons that happened to be there, as it violently dug its foam-flecked fangs into the barbarian's sweating palm, causing his face to contort to an ugly grimace as he cursed beneath his brayeth. With a loud crack, the rodent's head parted from its squirming torso, sending out a sprinkling shower of crimson gore. Everything's crimson now. And trailing a slimy string of disjointed vertebrae, snapped trachea, esophagus, and jugular. This really is science lesson with Grignor, apparently. Disjointed hyoid bone. I don't even want to take a guess of what he meant there.
Yeah.
Morose, purpled, stretched hide and blood-seared muscles.
What?
You keeping a list? Flinging the broken body to the floor, Grignor shook his blood-streaked hands and wiped them against his thigh until dry, then wiped the blood that had showered his face and from his eyes. So, basically that amounted to nothing. Again sitting himself upon the jagged floor, he prepared to once more revamp his glum meditations.
Fucking amazing.
Fucking great. What a fast-moving tale. He told himself that as long as he still breathed the gust of life through his lungs, hope was not lost. He told himself this, but found it hard to comprehend in his gloomy surroundings. Yet he was still alive, his bulging sinews at their peak of marvel. His struggling mind floating in a myriad of impressed excellence of thought. Plot after plot sifted through his mind in energetic contemplations. I hope some of them were better than this one. Then it hit him. Minutes may have passed in silent thought, or days, he could not tell. But he stumbled at last upon a plan that he considered as holding a slight margin of plausibility.
He gives it about an 8% success rate.
That's not even what plausibility means.
No.
So, yes, I think this might be a plan. He might die in the attempt, but he knew he would not submit without a final bloody struggle. Bloody struggles. It was not a foolproof plan, yet it built up a store of renewed vortexed energy in his overwrought soul. Though he might perish in the execution of the escape, yes, you just made this point, he would still be escaping the life of infinite torture in store for him. Either way, he would still cheat the gloating prince of the succored revenge his sadistic mind craved so dearly. Revenge for what?
Killing...
I don't think they even told the prince what he did.
I don't think they did either. Maybe that was his favourite soldier. I'm headcanoning this.
The guards would soon come to bear him off to the prince's buried mines of dread. Again, we're making assumptions here, aren't we, Grignr? Giving him the sought-after opportunity to execute his newly formulated plan. Groping his way along the rough floor, Grignr finally found his tool in a pool of congealed gore.
The rat having bitten it off.
The carcass of the decapitated rodent. The tool that the very filth he had been sentenced to spawned. When the time came for action, he would have to be prepared. So he set himself to rending the sticky hulk in grim silence, searching by the touch of his fingertips for the lever to freedom.
Okay, when the rat came in, did you get the impression that it had created a hole?
I got the impression it had sort of phased up through the floor.
Yeah, see, that was what he described, but in my mind I'm thinking, alright, the rat's dug its way in, and this is how he's going to get out, like, through the rat hole. That was what I just...
Well, I assume he's picking through the corpse to find, like, a bone to pick a lock with.
Well, I figure that's where he's going now,
Anyway, chapter 5.
Alright. That was a chapter?
Yeah. Well, what do you want, man? He killed a whole one rat.
That was... Up to the altar and be done with it, wench! Ordered a fidgeting shaman as he gave the female a grim stare accompanied by the wrinkling of his lips.
So, hang on, where was the execution, like the sacrificial altar, in relation to Grignr before? Because he's just been in a cell for like 20 minutes.
God only knows.
So was there a window? Is that what it was?
Video link? He can remote view. That's one of Grignar's other abilities.
Well, stay in school, kids.
Yeah. There you go. Look at Grignar.
Continue.
Okay, guess what the shaman's mouth wrinkles into?
Is it a grin?
Yes.
Yes, they've done that before.
A mirthful grin of delight this time. So there's no sadism in this grin.
I should have guessed it would have at least 3 adjectives attached to it.
No, it must. It's basics of writing, Yahtzee. I'm surprised your editor hasn't, zazzed your material up a little bit.
I think the word is zhuzhed.
The girl burst into a slow, steady whimper, stooped shakily to her knees.
Slow, steady whimper. How do we imagine that sounding? So basically sounding like the monolith from 2001.
Yeah, but crying. And the tears are just coming out as one steady stream, too.
Like in animes?
Yeah, like animes.
Okay, let's create that scene in audio. You do the whimpering and I'll do the eyes. I hope we've created that image in your head now.
Stooping shakily to her knees and cringing woefully from the priest with both arms wound snake-like around the bulging jade shin rising before her scantily attired figure.
Okay, I'm guessing that means she's clinging to the statue.
Yeah, but her face was redly inflamed from the salty flow of tears spouting from her glassy, dilated eyeballs. Not pupils, either.
No.
Eyeballs. Like, her eyeballs are like anime. They're bigger now. Yeah, this is really... Yeah, she's having an anime cry. With short, heavy footfalls, the priest approached the female, his piercing stare never wavering from her quivering young countenance. Halting before the terrified girl...
I really thought he was going for tits there.
Yeah,
maybe that's what he meant. We can't tell.
We have no means of understanding this. Halting before the terrified girl, he projected his arm outwards and motioned her to arise.
Fired it off the
Force.
End of his wrist.
Yeah, kind of like the Force. with an upward movement of his hand.
Now it's remote controlled.
Yeah, there's a full stop and no capitalization here.
Nice.
The girl's whimpering increased slightly. And she sunk closer to the floor rather than arising. The flickering torches outlined her trim build with a weird ornate glow as it cast a ghostly shadow dancing in horrid waves of splendor over smoothly worn whiteness of her marble-hewn altar.
Well, she's feeling better then.
Fucking Jesus. The shaman's lips curled back farther, exposing a set of blackened, decaying molars which transformed his slovenly grin into a wide, greasy arc of, guess what?
Stygian?
Nope, sadistic mirth,
Oh.
and alternately interposed into the female a strong sensation of stomach-curdling nausea.
Love your job, and you'll never work a day of your life.
Have it as you will, female, gloated the enhanced priest.
Have you noticed that he keeps addressing everything as female?
Yes.
Like there could be a dog for all we know.
The enhanced priest. So he's like, he must have like a +10 or like some sort of...
I'm thinking that means he's taken his dick pills this morning. He's got a big old chappy on.
Gloated the enhanced priest as he bent over at the waist, projecting his ape-like arms forward and clasped the female's slender arms with his hairy round fists.
Is he Inspector Gadget?
Go, what was it? Go, priest. And they're priests now, they're not shaman. Go, priest. Ball
I'm
fists.
sure the thesaurus didn't make a distinction.
No. With an inward surge of his biceps, he harshly jerked the trembling girl to her feet and smothered her salty wet cheeks with the moldy touch of his decrepit dull red lips.
Ew.
That's good.
Guess he was thirsty.
Yeah, you don't want to drink salt water though. I mean, you're gonna be more dehydrated, Mr. Priest Shaman, that's all I can say.
Well, he's, it's the Middle Ages, what do you want?
Yeah. The vile stench of the shaman's hot, fetid breath overcame the nauseated female with a deep, soul-searing sickness, causing her to wrench her head backwards and regurgitate a slimy orange-white stream of swelling gore over the richly woven purple robe of the enthused acolyte.
Gore?
That was a tough one to get through.
Okay, so, she's vomiting?
Yeah.
He smells so bad that she threw up. Okay, I guess I'll give you that one.
The priest's lips trembled with malicious rage.
Hang on, sorry, let's go back again. Did you say her neck snapped back before she threw up?
Wrench her head backwards.
Right, so she's puking upwards like a
Yeah,
little
like it's
sprinkler
just
system.
foaming. I think it's probably foaming backwards over her own face, to be honest.
Ah, she's gonna dehydrate, crying and vomiting in like this.
It'll get up her nose. That's what you don't want. The priest's lips trembled with a malicious rage as he removed his callous paws from the girl's arms and replaced them with tightly around her undulating neck, shaking her violently to and fro. This scene is magical.
So he's been like throttling her for like 3 paragraphs now.
He's asked her to get up. She's not. He's picked her up. She's vomited upward, just up. And now there's a priest holding a woman by the neck, vomiting orange-white foam up, shaking. In front of this fucking...
Well, he's doing it with his magic projecto arms.
Yeah.
So presumably he's keeping her at a safe distance.
With his funny little hairy sphere fists.
Yes.
Oh, God. The girl gasped a tortured moan from her clamped lungs, her sea-blue eyes bulging forth from damp sockets. Cocking her right foot backwards, she leashed it desperately outwards with the strength of a demon possessed.
Everything's being leashed as well.
Lodging her sandaled foot squarely between the shaman's testicles.
Okay, I completely had this scene wrong in my head.
Yep.
I didn't think that foot would be in range. I'm surprised he went for testicles rather than, quivering orbs of tender flesh.
Well, that and she missed both. Landed right between. Twixt.
Oh, yeah.
The startled priest released his crushing grip, crimping his body over at the waist, overlooking his recessed belly. Semicolon. Wide open in a deep chasm. His face flushed to rose-red shade of crimson, eyelids fluttering wide, with eyeballs protruding blindly outward from their sockets to their outmost perimeters.
Go, gadget eyes.
While his lips quivered wildly about, allowing an agonizing wallow to gust forth as his breath billowed from burning lungs. That was one sentence. His hands reached out, clutching his urinary gland. Fuck, I was not ready.
His what?
His urinary gland. No.
Give me
Okay, so you start there.
All right.
It gets worse.
His hands reached out, clutching his urinary gland, as his knees wobbled rapidly about for a few seconds, then buckled, causing the ruptured shaman to collapse in an egg-huddled mass to the granite pavement, rolling helplessly about in his agony. So that was an 8-line paragraph to describe how much getting kicked in the bollocks hurts.
An egg-huddled mass, like he's execute.
Maybe he's trying to hatch something. Like there just happened to be... He just laid an egg down there and he's going to keep it warm.
Gland.
The pathetic screeches of the shaman grovelling in dejected misery...
He's a shaman again.
There you go. Upon the hand-hewn granite-laid pavement. Yes, you really fond of this granite pavement, Jim, we know. Worn smooth by countless hours of arduous sweat and toil... A welter of ichor oozing through his clenched hands attracted the perturbed attention of his comrades from their fetid ulations.
That guy's dick's bleeding!
Is it? I don't think ichor means blood. I think ichor is a different thing.
Well, no, I don't think it means blood, but I think I'm sure ichor is... I gotta look this up.
Something distasteful's coming out of his knob.
Yeah.
The actions of this rebellious wench bespoke the credence of an unheard-of sacrilege. Never before, in a lost maze of untold aeons, had a chosen one dared to demonstrate such blasphemy in the face of the cult's idolic deity.
Ichor is an archaic term for fluid from a wound, so yes, his dick is bleeding.
Huh. Learn a new thing every day. Anyway, idolic deity. Say that 10 times fast.
Oh, Jesus.
The girl cowered in unreasoning terror, helpless in the face of the emblazoned acolyte's rage.
That's a reason to have terror. That's not that's exactly, you just kicked a guy in the dick, it's bleeding, and his friends are there.
I just kicked them all in the bollocks now. I mean, you've proved yourself already.
Yeah, I mean...
I
wouldn't approach a girl who just basically exploded my friend's testes.
Her orchid tussled face, smothered betwixt her bulging bosom.
What?
What's she doing now?
What the fuck? She's got like tit shoulders. There's just a face between tits.
I think she's trying to motorboat herself.
That's how she teleports.
As she shut her curled, lashed tightly. I think he forgot to put eyes in there somewhere.
Oh.
To shut her curled, lashed tightly, hoping to open them and find herself awakening from a morbid nightmare.
So she's in absolute terror. She's just hunched over and started motorboating herself in the hopes that somehow everything will turn out okay.
Yes, let's create an audio picture there as well.
There's no place like home. There's no place like home.
Yet the hand of destiny decreed her no such mercy. The antagonized pack of leering shaman, converging tensely upon her prostrate form, were entangled all too lividly in the grim web of reality.
That's where we are. We are in the grim web of reality.
Yeah, I mean, Jim Thies is an edgy writer.
We're here and we're living it.
This godless universe. Yeah, think about it, sheep. Shuddering from the clammy touch of the shaman as they grappled with her supple form, hands wrenching at her slender arms and legs in all directions, her bare body being molested in the midst of a labyrinth of orange smudges, purpled satin, and mangled skulls, shadowed in an eerie crimson glow.
Sounds like a rave.
I think she's in like a hall of mirrors or something.
Yeah,
her
like
confused head reeled, then clouded in a mist of enshrouding ebony. I think he means it all went black. As she lapsed beneath the protective sheet of unconsciousness. Brace yourself. As she lapsed beneath the protective sheet of unconsciousness to a land peach and resign.
I was not prepared. I had braced myself in the wrong direction. I just got hit in the back.
To a land peach and resign. What doesn't make sense about that?
Yeah, it's my fault. That's...
Chapter 6.
This is going into my English class.
We'll just wrap up this chapter and then we'll finish off this video.
How far through are we? Like, where's the...
I have no idea. It is a novella, not a short story.
Because,
So it's longer than a short story, but not as long as a novel.
are we going anywhere yet?
Well, we got all the way to a sacrificial bird kicking someone in the bollocks.
Take hold of this rope, said the first soldier, and climb out from your pit, slut. Your presence is requested in another far deeper hellhole. Guess who he's talking to?
Grignr?
Yes. Grignr the slut.
I knew Grignr was the slut, yeah. We've established that.
Grignr slipped his right hand to his thigh, like a slut.
Yeah, as you would.
Concealing a small opaque object beneath the folds of the G-string wrapped around his waist. That was hard.
What's the G-string wrapped around his waist for? Does he not know how to wear G-strings?
Yeah, some of that's got to go up in the tween bit there, Grignr. Brine wells swelled in Grignr's cold jade squinting eyes, which grown accustomed to the gloom of the, guess what?
Stygian?
Pools of ebony engulfed him, were bedazzled and blinded by flickering radiance cast forth by the second soldier's resin torch.
Okay.
Tightly gripped in the second soldier's right hand.
He was dazzled. Yeah.
Opposite the intermittent torch was a large double... Yeah, I know.
Opposite the what?
Intermittent.
So it's not always there.
Yeah, I think it's like clicking in and out of existence. This is a badly designed Warcraft mod. I think this is like a kind of precursor to Mogworld.
I'm getting that feeling.
That's where I'm living. Where are we? Tightly gripped in the second soldier's right hand, opposite the intermittent torch, was a large double-edged axe, a long leather-wound oaken-handled transfixing the center of the weapon's iron head.
Jim, the passive voice thighs.
Adorning the torsos of both of the sentries were thin yet sturdy hauberks. I don't know what those are. That might be a medieval thing.
I think that's an archaic word for a halberd.
Yeah. The breech plates of which were woven of tightly hemmed twines of reinforced silver braiding, cupping the soldiers' feet with thick leather sandals. I
don't think I've ever heard the word cupping used except in one other context.
Wound about their shins to 2 inches below their knees. Wrapped about their waists were wide satin girdles.
Oh, we're going to the full details again. Jim, fashion designer thighs.
Satin. With slender bladed poniards dangling loosely from them. The hilts
I don't know what a poniard is.
The hilts of which featured scarlet-encrusted gems, resting upon the manes of their heads and reaching midway to their brows with smooth copper morions.
Oh, I see. These are the drag queen guards.
Yeah, it must be. It's good to know that, there's an equal opportunity barbarian land here.
Whatever his name was, he's not judgmental.
Spiraling the lower portion of the helmet were short, up-curved silver spikes, while a golden hump spired from the top of each bassinet.
So they're camels now.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm looking at. Beneath their chins...
I think he's describing their hat.
Yeah, I've got that bit, but it's... You know the H.P. Lovecraft thing, the impossible geometry?
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting with this helmet description.
Yeah.
Beneath their chins, wound around their necks and draping their clad shoulders, dangled regal purple satin cloaks, which flowed midway to the soldiers' feet.
Okay, I'm still sort of with you.
That was a paragraph just on what the soldiers were wearing, sort of.
Well, it's important to build a picture in your head.
The next paragraph starts without a capitalization.
Of course it doesn't.
Hand over hand, feet braced against the dank walls of the enclosure, huge Grignr ascended from the mouldering depths of the forlorn abyss.
Tiny Grignr couldn't make it.
No.
Tiny Grignr stayed there.
Still down there, yeah. His swelled limbs, stiff due to the boredom of a timeless inactivity, compounded by the musty atmosphere of the jagged granite protrubian.
Inactivity, apparently a really good workout.
Against his body, oh, that's amazing, craved for action. Okay, I'm going to read that sentence again. I feel like I need to go back through this.
Yeah, please do.
His swelled limbs, stiff due to the boredom of a timeless inactivity, compounded by the musty atmosphere and jagged granite protuberant against his body, craved for action.
Okay, I think we can all agree with that. Continue.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. The opportunity now presented itself, served the purpose of oiling his rusty joints and honing his dulled senses.
Don't spoil it.
He braced himself, facing the second soldier. The sentry's stature was wildly exaggerated in the glare of the flickering... There were 2 wases there. Cresset cuppux in his right fist. His eyes were wide open in a slightly slanted owlish gaze, enhanced but in their sinister intensity by the hawkbill curve of his nose and pale yellow peak of his cheeks.
So... He had a very colourful face.
Yeah. All the villain dialogue seems to be indented. Like, I think he's taken that thing that from... Like, when you do an essay, if it's more than 3 lines, you give it its own paragraph and indent it. And he's just done that, even though this is creative writing.
Yeah, I think he took some bad English lessons.
Place your hands behind your back, said the second soldier, as he raised his axe over his right shoulder blade and cast it a wavering glance. We must bind your wrists to parry any attempts at escape.
Yeah, I know why we bind wrists, mate. I'm not stupid.
Be sure to make the knot a stout one, Broig. We wouldn't want our guest to take leave of our guidance.
It's like they're rehearsing lines for a play for Grigner's benefit.
Fucking magical. Broig grasped Grigner's left wrist and reached for the barbarian's right wrist. Grigner wrenched his right arm free and swiveled to face Broig. Reach-space beneath his loincloth with his right hand.
And wiped his ass.
Yeah, that was part of the same sentence. The sentry grappled at his girdle for the sheathed dagger, but recoiled short of his intentions as Grigner's right arm swept to his gorge. The soldier went limp. Okay, that was describing a strike.
Okay, so...
I think.
Right, so what did he hit? And what did he hit it with?
The soldier went limp, his bobbing eyes rolling beneath fluttering eyelids.
Maybe he didn't hit him, maybe he's just fallen in love.
He's just, he's smitten. A deep welt across his spouting gullet. Okay?
I think that means he got a stiffy as well.
Without lingering...
This is all clear now.
Yeah, crystal. Without lingering to observe the result of his efforts, Grigner dropped to his knees.
You slut, Grigner.
Grigner the slut, man. The second soldier's axe cleft over Grigner's head in a blaze of silvered ferocity, severing several scarlet locks from his scalp.
Oh, so he's dead then. Well, that was a fun story. Rest in peace, Grigner.
But wait. Coming to rest in his fellow's stomach, the iron head crashed through the mail and flesh with splintering force, spilling a pool of crimsoned entrails over the granite paving.
As opposed to the bright pink entrails, or the forest green entrails.
Or the linoleum that the palace seems to be done in. Before the sentry could wrench his axe free from his comrade's carcass, he found Grigner's massive hands clamped about his throat, choking the life from his clamped lungs.
What a thing to find.
Hey.
That's what he gets for killing his boyfriend.
With a zealous grunt, the accordion flexed his tightly corded biceps, forcing the grim-faced soldier to one knee. The sentry plunged his right fist into Grigner's face, digging his grimy nails into the barbarian's flesh.
See, I know accordion is like the stupid fantasy land that Grigner is from.
I know.
But I keep picturing that his lower body is just a great big squeeze box.
I know, and I'm really glad you interjected there. The very next word.
Oh, damn.
Ejaculating a curse through rasping teeth, Grigner surged the bulk of his weight forward, bowling the besieged soldier over on his back.
This is getting more homoerotic by the second.
Oh, good lord.
The old Holmes ejaculated thing that made us all laugh so much when I was a teenager.
Oh, so good. The sentry's arms collapsed to his thigh, shuddering convulsively.
What?
His bulging eyes... Another fucking, semicolon for no reason. His bulging eyes staring blindly from a bloated, cherry-red face.
Hang on, where was the semicolon?
After convulsively.
Okay.
Rising to his feet, Grigner shook the blood from his eyes. There's 2 L's and an O. Ruffling his surly red mane as a brush fire swaying to the nighttime breeze.
He needs to calm that hair down.
Yeah, he needs some Pantene. Stooping over the spur. That's just SPR. So I think he started writing sprawled and then had to write it again. Stooping over the sprawled corpse of the first soldier, Grigner retrieved a small white object from the pool of congealing gore. Snorting a gusty billow of mirth, he once concealed the tiny object beneath his loincloth. The tediously honed pelvis bone of the broken rodent.
The broken rodent?
Yeah, returning his attention toward the second soldier, Grigner turned to the task of attiring his limbs. So I think he's...
Sorry, what did he use the bone for?
I think that's what's happened. He's pulled the bone out, and that's how he's hurt the first dude.
Oh, I did wonder why he was going on about it in the last bit.
Returning his attention to the second soldier, Grigner returned to the task of attiring his limbs. To move about freely through the dim recesses of the castle would require the grotesque garb of its soldiery.
I see. He's going to pull the George Lucas gambit.
Yep. utilizing the silence and stealth acquired in the untamed climes of his childhood.
So is he going to have to put on all that drag queen?
I
gear
presume
that
that's
was
what he's in
described
now.
earlier?
Yeah, so not only was he's a ninja barbarian,
Yeah.
he's a barbarian who has acquired silence and stealth.
Well, Conan was famously a thief.
Was he?
Yeah, he was a barbarian and a thief.
So we're dealing with mixed class.
And I think Grignr was described as a thief earlier in the novella. So I think Jim Thighs is on solid ground there.
Thinking back through this novella is difficult for me. And winding stairways, lighting his way with the confiscated torch of his dispatched guardian. That thing stayed lit this whole time.
I'm going to take that off you until you learn to be responsible with it, mister.
You can speak to me after class. Knowing where his steps were leading to, Grignr meandered aimlessly in search of an exit from the
He
chateau's...
meandered aimlessly to a place he knew where it was.
Dim confines. The wild blood coursing through his veins yearned for the undefiled freedom of this livid wilderness lands. Coming upon a fork in the passage, he shrieked. Voices accompanied by clinking footfalls discerned to his sensitive ears from the left corridor. Wishing to avoid contact, Grignr veered to the right passageway. If questioned as to the purpose of his presence, his barbarous accent would reveal his identity, being that his attire was not that of the castle's mercenary troops.
I thought he'd put the crazy bling on.
So did I, apparently not. In grim silence, Grignr treaded down the dingily lit corridor, stalking...
So when he was saying that moving freely through the palace would require the uniform of its soldiery, he was just sort of thinking aloud.
Yeah, he thought, that'd be a good idea, and then just went, off I go!
Presumably, if you move through this castle wearing this uniform, you can do so freely. Presumably, it also has windows through which the sun can be seen during the day.
I might just walk out without doing that.
I will just catalogue all the known established facts about this palace, and perhaps a solution will arise.
Where are we? After an interminable period of wandering through the dull corridors, no gaps to break the monotony of the cold grey walls...
Oh, Jim, you were that close to becoming self-aware there, weren't you?
Grignr espied a small winding stairway, descending the flight of granite arst, because it's just C... Granite slabs to the posterior. Grignr, damn it. That's at the very tail end there.
Descending the flight of arced granite slabs to their posterior, Grignr was confronted by a short hallway leading to a tall arched wooden doorway. Halting before the teeming portal...
Huh?
That's what it says. Grignr rests his shaggy head sideways against the barrier. Detecting no sounds from within... Okay, the barrier is the same thing as the door, apparently. He grasped the looped metal handle of the door, his arms surging with a tremendous effort of bulging muscles. It's not locked. Yet the door would not budge. Oh, it is locked.
Alright.
Retrieving his axe from where he had sheathed it beneath his girdle...
I thought it was a G-string.
I laughed
gotcha, yeah.
Because I pictured a barbarian wearing a girdle for a second there.
Yeah, okay, he's taken bits of what the soldiers were wearing.
Oh, right,
is what I'm getting now.
Presumably. Well, you got to stay trim when you're a evil god.
Okay. Retrieving his axe from where he had sheathed it beneath his girdle. So he's wearing an axe beneath a girdle.
That's got to be painful.
Yeah, there's got to be digging.
Was it just sort of dangling between his legs?
I don't know. He hefted it in his mighty hands with an appiest grunt? Help me out here. I might get you to have a look at that.
Let me see. With an appiest grunt.
Okay, so
appiest... No, I'm lost on that one.
Alright, so it's not just me.
Maybe you meant ape-like?
Possibly.
But that's a big jump of conclusions on my part.
Isn't that in more words than Shakespeare, this Jim? Bracing his sandaled right foot against the roughly hewn wall, teeth tightly clenched, Grignr appilevered the oaken haft.
How long are we spending on this fucking door?
I don't know. Employing it as a lever whereby to pry open the barrier.
Science lessons with Grignr again.
The leather-wound hilt bending to its utmost limits of endurance, the massive portal swung open with a grating of snapped latch and rusty iron hinges.
Oh, that was a
fucking
faff.
Journey.
That was a fucking faff.
Glancing about the dust-swelled room and the gloomily dancing glare of his flickering cresset, Grignr eyed evidences of the enclosure being nothing more than a forgotten storeroom.
CSI Grignr.
Miscellaneous articles required for the maintenance of the castle were piled in disorganized heaps at infrequent intervals toward the wall opposite the barbarian's piercing stare. Just piercing the wall, just fucking...
Well, what do you even need the rat bone for, man?
Oh, there's a cyclops your way through that.
Yeah, just pierce your way out to freedom.
Utilizing long bounding strides, Grigna paced his way over to the mounds of supplies.
He's just so very happy.
I know, it does in my head. He's like, wee. The mounds of supplies to discover if any articles of value were contained within their midst. Detecting a faint clicking sound, Grigna sprawled to his left side with the speed of a striking cobra, landing harshly upon his back, torch and axe loudly clattering to the floor in a morass of sparks and flames. There goes the ninja and thief.
Yeah, he just jumped like a fucking girl.
Yeah, that is...
made a noise.
That is the least... That is... No, you're no... You've lost ninja and thief.
Don't hit me.
A elm-woven board leaped from a collapsed flooring, clashing against the jagged flooring and spewing a shower of orange and yellow sparks over Grigna's startled face.
So he knocked something over.
I think. Rising uneasily to his feet, the half-stunned accordion glanced down at the gruesome arm of death he had unwittingly sprung. Smurf! If not for his keen auditory organs and lightning-steeled reflexes...
So ears, then.
Yeah, maybe he's got other ones.
Maybe he's got echolocation or something.
Grigna would have been groping through the shadowed hell pits of the Grim Reaper. He had unknowingly stumbled upon an ancient, long-forgotten booby trap, a mistake which would have stunted the perusal of longevity of one less agile. Yeah. A mechanism similar in type to that of a miniature catapult was concealed beneath two collapsible sections of granite flooring.
A locked door. Oh, wait, we opened it. A booby trap. Oh, wait, it missed.
Yeah.
Continue, Jim Thighs.
The arm of the device was 4 feet long, boasting razor-like cleats at regular intervals along its face, with which it was to skewer. You can't
try to establish drama after the trap already missed, Jim.
It's a twist. With which it was to skewer the luckless body of its would-be victim.
This is like a D&D campaign where they keep rolling ones.
It is the worst dungeon master ever. Grigna had stepped upon a concealed catch which released a metal latch beneath the two...
Oh, for fuck's sake!
I know. Between the two granite sections, causing them to fall inward and thereby loose the spiked arm of death they had precariously held in.
It really is CSI Grigna now, isn't it?
That was a paragraph explaining exactly how the trap worked, but not really.
Looks like we could have ended up entrapped.
Yeah!
That was the best I could come up with, sorry.
No, that was good. Especially for CSI.
Well, lucky we won't be charged with entrapment.
Yeah!
That was slightly better.
Partially out of curiosity, and partially out of an inordinate fear of becoming a pincushion for a possible second trap,
Inordinate? No, I think that's quite understandable, Grigna, mate.
Grigna plunged his torch into the exposed gap in the floor. Jesus, that was a hard one to get through. The floor of the second chamber stood out 7 feet below the glare. Tossing his torch through the aperture, Grigna grasped the inside of the adjoining tile, dropping down. So he's managed to escape through the hole that the trap was placed in.
Okay.
Into a whole other room.
That's a smart thing to do to avoid traps.
Glancing about the room, Grigna discovered that he had descended into the palace's mausoleum.
So when people use the mausoleum, they just don't mind that big trap on the wall?
Just don't touch the trappy bits in the ceiling.
Yeah,
don't.
Those
are important.
For the benefit of the room above.
Yeah, they guard our neglected storeroom with the giant door and assembled crap. The tops of the enclosures were plated with thick layers of virgin gold, while the sides were plated with white ivory at one time...
gold saving it till marriage.
That's important. At one time sparkling, but now grown dingy through the passage of the rays of all-encompassing Mother Time.
Wait, I thought it was virgin gold.
I think we're talking about the ivory now.
Oh, right.
So the ivory's shitty. The virgin, the gold, still virgin.
Oh, so they replaced the gold, but they figured the ivory's good for a few more years.
Because it hasn't been... The ivory's been molested by all-encompassing Mother Time.
Everything's getting molested.
Everything. Featured at the head of each sarcophagus in tarnished silver was an expugnatively carved likeness of its rotting inhabitant.
Yeah, I'm going to have to look at that
Yeah,
word.
look at... It's bottom line at the top.
Expugnatively. No, your guess is as good as mine, man.
A dingy atmosphere pervaded the air of the chamber, which sealed in the enclosure for an unknown period had grown thick and stale. Intermingling with the curdled currents was the repugnant stench of slowly mouldering flesh, creeping ever slowly but surely through minute cracks in the numerous vaults.
Thank you, I know what a mausoleum is, Jim.
Due to the embalming of the body as their flesh decayed at a much slower rate than normal.
And I know what embalming is as well.
Yet the nauseous odour, spelled O-D-E-R, was nonetheless repellent.
Wasn't that Garfield's dog?
That was O-D.
Oh.
Towering over Grigner's head was the trap he released. The mechanism of the miniaturized catapult with an O was cluttered with mildew and cobwebs. Notwithstanding these relics of antiquity, its efficiency remained unimpinged. Still talking about the trap. To the right of the trap...
Yeah,
Fuck!
I thought we'd moved on from the trap.
No, the rest of this is the trap. To the right of the trap wound a short stairway through a recess in the ceiling.
Wait, what? Is that what we just came down?
Impossible geometry. A concealed entrance leading to the mausoleum for which the catapult had obviously been erected as a silent, relentless guardian. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't guarding the mausoleum.
No, we were above the mausoleum when the trap triggered.
The trap protected the storeroom.
What the fuck?
The mechanics of the trap protected the mausoleum. The bit that actually did the job...
I guess, if there's only one reason anyone would be in the storeroom above, and that's to secretly make their way into the mausoleum through the hole in the floor that wouldn't exist if you hadn't put a trap there.
Obviously, it's a very clever... It's a Resident Evil style key.
Well, quite.
Climbing up the side of the device, Grigner set to the task of resetting its mechanism.
Okay. Well, at least you can't say he's an untidy barbarian.
I'm getting the feeling that he's a really autistic barbarian.
He's just got to leave things as he found them.
He's
a guest in this palace, after all.
That's manners are common to the Accordions. In the event that a search was organized, it would prove well to leave no evidence of his presence open to wandering eyes.
Oh, I see. I thought we were doing a Chekhov's gun there.
Because, they won't notice he's not in the fucking cell.
No. Or that he killed 2 guards and fell in love with one of them.
Besides, it might even serve to dwindle the size of an opposing force.
Oh, for God's sake, Jim.
Oh, cosmic. Descending from his perch, Grigner was startled by a faintly muffled scream of horrified desperation.
How long has he been on a perch? Where did this perch come from?
Just chilling. His hair prickled Yorkishly in disorganized clumps along his scalp.
Prickled what?
Yorkishly.
What does that mean?
I don't know. As a cold danced along the length of his spinal cord. No moral/mortal barrier.
How far are we to the end of this chapter, by the way?
I don't know how far we're into the chapter. We are in the last quarter of the novel, according to the little slider on the right. So we're past halfway.
Well, we've done over an hour. This is dragging on a bit long. I want to play some Dark Souls today. Maybe just...
We'll get to the end of the next chapter. We'll get to the end of this chapter.
Okay.
Alright, that's what we'll do. Okay, so we're at Yorkishly. No moral/mortal barrier, human or otherwise, was capable of arousing the numbing sensation of fear inside of Grigner's smouldering soul. However, he was overwrought by the forces of the barbarian's instinctive fear of the supernatural. The mighty thews had always served to adequately conquer any tangible foe.
Thews again.
Full stop, comma. But the intangible was something distant and terrible.
Oh, Thews, you let us down.
You silly Thews. Dim, horrifying tales passed by word of mouth over glimmering campfires and skins of wine had more than once served the purpose of chilling the marrowed core of his sturdy-limbed bones.
I want one of those guys who do, animated clips of our videos to hand tackle some of this.
Yeah, that's your job now, actually. I need to see this as a film. Yet the scream contained a strangely human quality.
Yeah, there probably already is something on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm going to look it up after this.
It's a pretty notorious thing.
Unlike that which Grigner imagined would come from the lungs of a demon or spirit, making Grigner take short, nervous strides, advancing to the sarcophagus from which the sound was issuing.
I've lost track. Are we still in the mausoleum?
I think so, and he's taking strides that are short and nervous. So I'm imagining his tiptoes, doing Clenching his teeth in an attempt to steel his jangled nerves, Grigner slid the engraved slab from the vault with a sharp rasp of grinding stone. Another long-drawn cry of terror and fested anguish met the barbarian, scoring like the shrill piping of a demented banshee, piercing the inner fibers of his superstitious brain with primitive dread, and awe.
I think Jim's getting pretty judgmental of Grigner there.
Yeah. Stooping over to espy the tomb's contents, which he spelled once with E-S-P-I-E and now once E-S-P-Y. The glittering accordion's nostrils were singed by the scorching aroma of a mouldering corpse.
I pictured an accordion again.
Yeah, it's so good. Long shut up and fermenting. The same putrid scent which permeated the entire chamber, though multiplied to a much more concentrated dosage.
It's going to come to life. We figured this out.
The shriveled, leathery packet of crumbling bones and dried, flacking fresh flesh offered no resistance.
So they put it in a packet first.
Yeah, it's kind of like jerky.
Just add water, yeah.
But remained in fixed position of perpetual vigilance, watching over its dim abode from hollow, gaping sockets.
This is how they make cuppa soups, I think.
The tortured
Was that a laugh?
Yes.
I think it was.
Fuck. Cup of soup fucking got me.
Where are we? The tortured cries were not coming from the tomb, but from some hidden depth below. Oh.
So all of that was a fucking... That was...
We're just like descending through 2 rooms. It's been like 9 pages so far. Pulling the reeking corpse from its resting place, Grigner tossed it to the floor in a broken, mangled heap. Just out of spite, I guess.
Fuck you.
Upon one side of the crypt's bottom was attached a series of tiny hinges, while running parallel along the opposite side of a convex railing-like protuberance. Laid so as to appear as a part of the interior surface of the sarcophagus. I think he means there was a trapdoor in the bottom.
I think, yeah.
Raising the slab upon its bronze hinges, long removed from the gaze of human eyes, Grigner perceived a scene which caused his blood to smoulder not unlike bubbling molten lava. Ow. Directly below him, a whimpering female lay stretched upon a smooth surface marble altar. Okay, so Grigner wasn't at the sacrificial thing when he was describing it earlier.
No, it was not.
So what the fuck was that all about?
That's Jim not being able to, understand perspective of voice in narrative.
Directly below him, a whimpering female lay stretched upon a smooth-surfaced marble altar. A pack of grazy-faced shaman clustered around her in a tight circular formation. Crouched over the girl was a tall, pot-bellied priest. I guess his knob feels better. His face dominated by a disgusting, open-mouthed grimace of sadistic glee.
Of course it's sadistic glee.
A grimace of sadistic glee. Suspended from the acolyte's clenched right hand... He's an acolyte, apparently.
That was a sentence ago! Like, fuck you, you can't...
They're going up and down. Suspended from the acolyte's clenched right hand was a carven oval-faced mallet. Aha! Chekhov's gun, you see. Which he waved menacingly over the girl's shadowed face, an incoherent gibberish flowing from his grinning, thick-lipped mouth. In the face of the amorphose, broad-breeted female... Amorphous?
Amazing.
I don't think that's what amorphous means, Jim. Broad-breeted female, stretched out alluringly before his gaping eyes.
Don't you love a great set of breets?
Oh, God, we're going in here again. The universal whim of nature filing a plea of despair inside of his white-hot soul. Grigner acted in the only manner he could perceive. Giving vent to a hoarse, throat-rending battle cry, Grigner plunged into the midst of the startled shaman and presumably stabbed the girl to death, because that's where she was. Torch simmering in his left hand, and axe twirling in his right hand. And axe was all one word, of course.
Of course it was.
A gaunt, skull-faced priest standing at the far side of the altar clutched desperately at his throat, coughing furiously in an attempt to catch his breath. I haven't even stabbed you yet, man.
Yeah, so he's clutching at his own throat.
Lurching helplessly to and fro, the acolyte priest first, now acolyte, pitched headlong against the gleaming base of a massive jade idol. Writhing agonizedly against the hideous image, foam flecking his chalk-white lips, the priest struggled helplessly, the victim of an epileptic seizure.
Fucking yes!
That's how you create a threatening villain. Just have him have an epileptic fit the moment you enter the room.
This is a fight scene that started with a barbarian dropping from a trapdoor onto a bunch of priests, one of which dies of an unrelated medical condition.
It doesn't say he's dead. Well, it says he struggled helplessly. Startled by the barbarian's stunning appearance, well, he's still dressed as the drag queen, isn't he? The chronic fit of their fellow, and the fear that Grigner might be the avant-garde of a conquering force dedicated to the cause of destroying their degenerated cult, the salmon momentarily lost their composure.
What?
S-A-M-A-N.
Oh, right, okay. Okay, I'm with you now. That's...
Yes, they didn't turn into fish. Jim the
I
Thighs
can't
isn't
be
that
short.
bad. Giving vent to heedless pandemonium, the priests fell easy prey to Grigner's sweeping arc of crimsoned death and maiming destruction. The acolyte performing the sacrifice took a vicious blow to the stomach, hands clutching vitals and severed spinal cord as he sprawled over the altar. The disauronized priests lurched and staggered with split skulls, dismembered limbs, and spewing entrails before the enraged Ecordion's relentless onslaught.
Enraged, I just...
This was one blow.
Yeah.
One blow, I'll remind you.
In my head, it is just an accordion with googly eyes leaping on people and squeezing them up in its little bits.
Well, I'm really concerned for Grigner. How will he get out of this one? One guy had a fit, the rest died when he swung his sword.
Yeah, a bunch of priests. Where'd the fat priest go? We had a fat priest and Skinny had a fucking fit. The fat priest is dying of asthma.
The howls of the maimed and dying reverberated against the walls of the tiny chamber, a chorus of hell-fraught despair, as the granite floor ran red with blood. The entire chamber was encompassed in the heat of raw, savage butchery, as Grigner luxuriated in the grips of a primitive beastly bloodlust.
Was butchery spelt with 2 T's? I really want it to be.
No, I'm afraid not. Presently all went silent, save for the ebbing groans of the sinking shaman. There's just one now. And Grigner's heaving breath accompanied by several gusty curses. Gusty curses. So he was breaking wind while he was doing that. The well had run dry. No more lambs remained for the slaughter. The rampaging stead of death, having taken of Grigner for the moment, left the barbarian free to the exploitation of his other perusials. This is like legalese. Towering over his head was the misshaped image of the cult's hideous deity, Argon. Grigner just knows that. The fantastic size of the idol, in consideration of its being of pure jade, was enough to cause the senses of any man to stagger and reel, yet thus was not the case for the behemoth. He had paid only casual notice to this incredible fact, while riveting the whole of his attention upon the jewel protruding from the idol's sole socket.
I was hoping it was going to be the woman.
Its masterfully cut faucets, I think you mean facets, but we'd never know at this point, emitting blinding rays of hypnotizing beauty. I wish I had a faucet that emitted rays of beauty in my house.
That's a...
After all, a man cannot slink from a heavily guarded palace while burdened down by the intense bulk of a squatting statue. So this whole paragraph is just Grigner's thought processes, I guess. Providing, of course, that the idol can even be hefted, which in fact was beyond the reaches of Grigner's coursing stamina. On the other hand, the jewel, gigantic as it was, would not present a hindrance of any mean concern. "Help me, please. I can make it well worth your while," pleaded a soft, anguish-strewn voice, wafting over Grigner's shoulders as he plucked the dull red emerald.
Isn't she covered in orange choke vomit?
You're missing the important part here. Okay. The red emerald from its roots. Turning, Grigner faced the female that had lured him into this bloodbath. Oh yeah, forgot about her. But whom had become all but forgotten in the heat of the battle. "You!" "You!" ejaculated the accordion. There's more. "You!" ejaculated the accordion in a pleased tone.
"You!"
"I though that I had seen the last of you at the tavern, but verily...
fucking Jesus,
But verily I was mistaken." Grigner advanced into the grips of the female's entrancing stare, severing the golden chains that held her captive upon the altar's highly polished face of ornamental limestone. It was marble earlier. What the fuck? As Grigner lifted the girl from the altar, her arms wound dexterously about his neck, soft and smooth against his harsh exterior. "Art thou pleased that we have chanced to meet once again?" Grigner merely voiced an side grunt. Gabriel will now demonstrate a side grunt for your pleasure. returning the damsel's embrace while he smothered her trim, delicate lips between the coursing protrusions of his reeking maw.
Whoa, ugh.
This isn't sounding much better than the priest
fuck?
that she vomited over.
Yeah, she's like,
Let us take leave of this wretched chamber, stated Grigner, as he placed the female upon her feet.
I imagine that just completely, there's no emotion, there's no character that, let us take leave of this wretched chamber.
She swooned a moment, causing Grigner to give her support, then regained her stance.
Isn't he already carrying her? Or is it...
Art thou able to find your way through the accursed passages of this castle? Mrifk! Every one of the corridors of this damned place are identical. How would you know? You've seen like 2 rooms.
Yeah.
I was at one time a slave of Prince Agaphim. His clammy touch sent a sour swill through my belly, but my efforts reaped a harvest. I bet they did, lady. I gained the pig's liking, whereby he allowed me the freedom of the palace. It was through this means that I eventually managed escape at the western gate. His trust found him with a dagger thrust his ribs, the wench stated.
Huh?
Okay, I'm just going to give this one word to you.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's going into the lexicon. Whimsicorically.
The wench stated whimsicorically. What were you doing at the tavern whence I discovered you? Asked Grigner as he lifted the female through the opening into the mausoleum. Wait, she said something about stabbing the prince in the ribs?
Yeah.
She escaped?
And well, I thought Agathon was the advisor.
No, that was someone with a stupid name that needed a vowel.
Okay.
I had sought to lay low from the palace's guards as they conducted their search for me. The tavern was seldom frequented by the palace guards, and my identity was unknown to the common soldiers. It was through the disturbance that you caused that the palace guards were attracted to the tavern. I was dragged away shortly after you were escorted to the palace. What are you called by, female?
This will be good.
Carthena, daughter of Mincardos, Duke of Barwego, whose lands border along the northwestern fringes of Gorzom. I was paid as homage to Agaphim upon his 38th year, husked the femme! Exclamation mark.
Carthena!
And I am called a barbarian, grunted Grigner in a disgusted tone! Exclamation mark.
Sometimes he's more fickle than a woman. Sometimes he's like, oh, I like you. No, I don't. I'm just, get away from my feelings.
Aye, the ways of our civilization are in many ways warped and distorted. But what is your calling? She queried, bustily.
Bustily?
She queried bustily question mark.
Excellent. Bustily? Bustily? Yeah, that's fucking bustily question mark, Jim.
Grigner of Ecordia. Ah, I have heard vaguely of Ecordia. It is the hill country to the far east of the Norigolian Empire. I have also heard Agaphim curse your land more than once, when his troops were routed in the unaccustomed mountains and gorges. So the mountains were unaccustomed, not the troops.
Ah, okay.
Saith she. Aye, my people are not tarnished by petty luxuries and baubles. They remain fierce and unconquerable in their native climes.
Like the G-string.
After reaching the hidden panel at the head of the stairway, Grigner was at a loss in regard to its operation. Well, what do you want? His fiercest heaves were as pebbles against burnished armour. Carthena depressed a small symbol included within the elaborate design upon the panel, whereupon it slowly slid into a cleft in the wall. How did you come to be the victim of those crazed shaman? Quested Grigner, as he escorted Carthena through the piles of rummage on the left side of the trap.
So Grigner couldn't work out how to get through the trap that he came through and had reset personally.
Guess not.
Okay,
But she did. She knew where this button was.
Of course, she's Carthena.
By Agaphim's orders, I was thrust into a secluded cell to await his passing of sentence. I guess it was a non-lethal stab. That's my guess here.
Yeah, it must have been.
By some means, the priests of Argon acquired a set of keys to the cell. They slew the guard placed over me, and abducted me to the chamber in which you chanced to come upon. Okay, you're just making shit up now, Jim. As you chanced to come upon the Skostic sacrifice. Look at that.
That's good. I'm looking that up. But okay. So here's the thing. There's a whole. The priests don't seem to be related to the prince.
No.
There's a cult living in his house, and he doesn't know.
There's a cult living in his basement.
And he's here.
Their hell-spawned cult demands a sacrifice once every 3 moons upon its full journey through the heavens. They were startled by your unannounced appearance through the fear that you had been sent by Agaphim. The prince would surely have submitted them to the most ghastly of tortures if he had ever discovered their unfaithfulness to Sargon, his bastard deity. So they don't worship Argon, they worship Sargon.
Okay.
Many of the partakers of the ritual were high nobles and high trustees of the inner palace. Agaphim's pitiless wrath would have been unparalleled. They have no more to fear of Agaphim now, bellowed Grignr in a deep, mirthful tone, a gleeful smirk upon his face. I have seen that they were delivered from his vengeance. No, you haven't.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. He killed them. I guess that's what he means.
Oh, the priest. Okay, all right.
Yeah. Engrossed by Carthena's graceful stride and conversation, Grignr failed to take note of the footfalls rapidly approaching behind him. Oh no. As he swung aside the arched portal, linking the chamber with the corridors beyond, a maddened, blood-lusting screech reverberated from his eardrums. His ears were screeching.
Yeah.
Seemingly utilizing the speed of thought.
Oh, fucking Jesus.
I'll say that again. Seemingly utilizing the speed of thought, Grignr swiveled to face his unknown foe. With gaping eyes and widened jaws,
What?
Grignr raised his axe above his surly mane, M-E-I-N. But he was too late.
Like low main?
That was the end of the chapter. To be continued.
Jesus, weeping Christ.
Well, that was fun. We should do more dramatic readings.
That is legitimately one of the most amazing literary experiences that I've ever been on.
Well, that's why it's so notorious. We should do one of these for like that My Little Pony fan fiction or something.
Oh, no, absolutely. This is an idea I had. Remember back when I brought that Spider-Man, the novelization of Spider-Man 3?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might have been a bit too long.
Oh, yeah, not the whole thing, but oh, glory, there are some chunks in that.
Anyway, hope you enjoyed this audio venture.
I don't know how you can't have enjoyed this. This is the greatest thing ever.
So, yeah, that was The Eye of Argon by Jim Thies. Apparently, later in life, he claimed it was a satire. But he was 16 when he wrote it.
Bullshit.
So fuck off, Jim Thies.
Fucking bullshit.
No one's being that satirical at 16.
No, and the sheer amount of... Like, granted, he's writing this on, like, probably a typewriter or something, if that.
Yeah.
You know, no 16-year-old kid's gonna have a word processor.
Yeah, this was the 70s. This is 1970 that it was submitted to the magazine it was published in.
Absolutely no way. So, he has had some kind of... I presume he's had a thesaurus around, but usually thesauri can teach you how to spell things correctly.
I think this was definitely a thesaurus situation.
I think maybe he had a lot of books around him
I mean,
he was stealing bits from without really understanding what they mean.
He looked up priest in a thesaurus and just alternated which word he used every time he described that character.
Which isn't what you're supposed to do, because they're not really, like, they're different things. And when you do that, you get... You know, the situation where it's like, who the fuck are you talking about?
So, better wrap this up. That was the Eye of Argon. We're now going to lazily direct our orbs at some Dark Souls.
We can finish this next week, right?
If you insist.
Oh, we must.
Gabriel's lusty for some sluts.
Yeah, I'm lusty for lusty for accordion sluts.
Yeah, you're lusty for the accordion slut.
There we go.
Now then, you may have noticed during the week we did a little video in which we read aloud the Eye of Argon.
That was fun.
But since there isn't much of it left, I figured we'd just finish it off here and now. So we'll just read out half a page each time we die. How does that sound?
Sounds good to me.
There you go. Starts at chapter 7.
With wobbling knees and swimming head, the priest that had lapsed into an epileptic seizure rose unsteadily to his feet. While enacting his choking fit in writhing agony, the shaman was overlooked by Grigner.
Yippee, that seems like a difficult thing to overlook. In the middle of an otherwise empty room.
The barbarian had mistaken the seizure for the death throes of the acolyte, allowing the priest to avoid his stinging blade. The sight that met the priest's inflamed eyes nearly served to sprawl him upon the floor once more. The sacrificial sat in grim, blood-splattered silence all around him, broken only by the occasional yelps and howls of his maimed and butchered fellows. Above his head rose the hideous idol, its empty socket holding the shaman's furbished, infuriated gaze.
Infuriated, eh?
Yep. His eyes turned to a stony glaze with the realization of the pillage and blasphemy. Due to his high susceptibility following the seizure, the priest was transformed into a raving maniac bent solely on seeking vengeance.
So remember that, guys. After an epileptic seizure, girls are really easy.
Now that you have, you can turn anyone who's had an epileptic fit basically into like Jason Bourne. You can just. It's a shame the fire doesn't burn him.
I was gonna say flowers for Algernon, but okay.
Well, because I think he's about to become kind of like a, cleric plus and fight Grigner.
Right, where were we?
I don't know.
A sweeping scimitar swung towards Grigner's head in a shadowed blur of motion. With axe, capital A, raised over his head, Grigner prepared to parry the blow, while gaping wide-eyed in open-mouthed perplexity. Yeah, Jim knows what gaping means. Suddenly, a sharp snap resounded behind the frothing shaman. I don't think he wasn't frothing from his mouth. He just
just generally.
He'd just come out of the shower and he still had his shampoo in his hair.
Fizzy. He's just naturally fizzy.
The scimitar, halfway through its fatal sweep, dropped from a quivering, nerveless hand. Well, it wasn't a fatal sweep then.
Yeah.
Clattering harmlessly to the stonage. Cutting his screech short with a bubbling, red-mouthed gurgle, the lacerated acolyte staggered under the pressure of the released springboard. Oh, it was the trap.
He is stuck on that trap, like...
Yeah, this is still the most pathetic combat Grigner has been in this whole story.
Yeah, a bunch of, like, fizzy...
Yeah, a bunch of crap outs. One of them had an epileptic fit. The rest died in one hit.
Oh, fuck yeah.
And the one that had the epileptic fit just came in and got killed by the trap. After a moment of hopeless struggling, the shaman buckled, sprawling face down in a widening pool of blood and entrails. Oh, sorry, that's 2 L's in blood, so perhaps it's Welsh. Plod.
Blood.
Plod. His regal purple robe blending enhancingly with the swirling streams of crimson. I like how he paints a picture with words.
I feel like I'm there. Enhancingly.
Mrifk! I thought I had killed the last of those dogs, muttered Grigner in a half-apathetic state. Fucking intense action right here.
Get it! Fucking get it!
Nay, Grigner, you doubtless grew careless while giving vent to your lusts. But let us not tarry any long.
When was that?
Lest we overtax the fates. The paths leading to freedom will soon be barred. The wretch's cries most certainly have attracted unwanted attention, the wench mused. By what direction shall we pursue our flight?
One direction.
Down to Terminal 5, I think. Up that stair and down the corridor a short distance is the concealed entrance to a tunnel seldom used by others than the prince, and known to few others save the palace's royalty. Sorry, I should be doing my whore voice, shouldn't I?
Yes, whore voice.
It is used mainly by the prince when he wishes to take leave of the palace in secret. It is not always in the prince's best interests to leave his chateau in public view. Even while under heavy guard, he is often assaulted by hurtling stones and rotting fruits. The commoners have little love for him, lectured the Nere lady! Exclamation mark.
The what?
N-E-R-E, lady. All
yeah,
one
like
word.
I know like sort of ne'er-do-well, but I don't know. Oh god, yeah. Because it's not even spelled like ne'er as in ne'er-do-well either.
No, it's not a word.
Yeah.
It's a load of bullshit is what it is.
Nere lady.
Come on, Mr. Hyder Knight.
Alright, who's speaking here? It is amazing that they would ever have a pig like him become their ruler. I should imagine that his people would rise up and crucify him like the dog he is. Oh no, I think that was Grigner. Okay. It is amazing that they would ever have a pig like him become their ruler. I should imagine that his people would rise up and crucify him like the dog that he is. Alas, Grigner, it is not as simple as that. His soldiers are well paid by him. So long as he keeps their wages up, they will carry out his damned wish. Wished, huh? The crude implements of the common folk would never stand up under an onslaught of forged blades and protective armor. They would be going to their own slaughter, stated Carthena to a confused but angered Grigner as they topped the stairway.
I think that just sums up Grigner's personality this whole time.
Yeah, like, I don't understand any of this, and most of it upsets me. Yet how can they bear to live under such oppression? I would sooner die beneath the sword than live under such a dog's command, added Grigner as the pair stalked down the hall in the direction opposite that in which Grigner had come.
Heavy attacks, that does the business.
Yeah. There's got to be a better way to phrase that. But all men are not of the same mold that you are born of. They choose to live as long as they are so as to save their filthy necks from the chopping block.
Sociology with Carthena.
Returned Carthena in a disgusted tone, as she cast an appeased glance toward the stalwart figure at her side, whose left arm was wound dexterously about her slim waist, his slowly waning torch casting their images in intermingling wisps as it dangled from his left hand.
Okay. Presently, Carthena came upon the panel, concealed amongst the other granite slabs and discernible only by the burned-out cresset above it. As I pushed the cresset aside, pushed the panel inwards. Carthena motioned to the panel she was referring to, and twisted the cresset in a counterclockwise motion. Grigner braced his right shoulder against the walling, concentrating the force of his bulk against it. The slab gradually swung inward with a slight grating sound. Carthena stooped beneath Grigner's corded arms and crawled upon all fours into the passage beyond. Grigner followed after easing the slab back into place. Winding before the pair was a dark, musty tunnel, exhibiting tangled spider webs from its ceiling to wall, and an oozing sickly slime running lazily upon its floor. Oozing, I would have said.
Shit.
Hanging from the chipped wall upon Grigner's, capital R, right side, was a half-moulded corpse, its grey flacking arms, held in place by rusted iron manacles. Carthena flinched back into Grigner's arms.
Get wrecked.
I thought they were on all fours.
Yeah, that's one of the fucking biggest puzzles for me in this whole book, is like working out what's going on at any given point. Like, they kind of teleport around.
Flinched back into Grigner's arms at sight of the leering Set in an ugly, distorted grimace, 2 M's, staring horribly at her from hollow, gaping sockets.
Huh?
This alcove must also be used by Agathim as a torture chamber. I wonder how many of his enemies have disappeared into these haunts, never to be heard from again, pondered the hulking brute. Let us flee before we are also caught within Agathim's ghastly clutches. The exit from this tunnel cannot be very far from here. Lost my place for a second there. Said Carthena with a slight sob to her voice as she sagged in Grigner's encompassing embrace. Aye, it will be best to be finished with this corridor as soon as it is possible. My thoughts exactly, Jim.
Yeah, alright, so, okay, I can't get across there. Alright.
But why do you flinch from the sight of death so? Mrift! I thought it was Mrifk. You have seen much death this day without exhibiting such emotions, exclaimed Grigner, as he led her trembling form along the dingy confines. The man hanging from the wall was Doyanta. He had committed the folly of showing affections for me in front of Agathim. Blimey, the world revolves around this bitch. He never meant any harm by his actions. Friend zone, I'm guessing. At this, Carthena broke into a slow, steady whimpering, chocking her voice with gasping sobs. Yeah, read from chocking her voice.
Oh god, choking her voice with gasping sobs. There was never anything between us. Yet Agatham did this to him, the beast!
That's shocking, is it?
Yeah, apparently.
I wasn't sure.
May the demons of hell's deepest haunts claw away at his wretched flesh for this merciless
Bye,
act.
guys.
She prayed.
Sorry to wake you.
I detect that you felt more for this fellow than you wish to let on. But
Yeah.
enough of this.
Yeah, you already said.
Oh, Jesus. We can talk of such matters after we are once more free to do so. With this, Grigna lifted the grieved female to her feet and strode onward down the corridor, supporting the bulk of her weight with his surging left arm. Aye.
Surging?
Yeah, that's no
What's he
business.
doing? Playing tennis?
Presently, a dim light was perceptibly filtering into the tunnel, casting a dim reddish hue upon the moldy
You
wall.
already used dim.
Moldy is spelt with the passage's grim confines. Carthena had ceased her whimpering, finally. And,
Yeah, bitches, am I right?
they're just always with the whimpering and the choking, and, just whimpering and choking. That's my entire experience of women, is whimpering and choking. I don't have a problem. What are you talking
I
about?
think that says more about you than them, dude.
Windows into people. And she had partially regained her composure. The tunnel's end must be nearing. Rays of sunlight are beginning to seep into... ellipsis. Grigna clammed his chlamyde. Okay.
Chlamydia.
Chlamyde his right hand over Carthena's mouth, and with a slight struggle pulled her over to the shadows at the right hand of the wall path, while at the same time thrusting his torch beneath an overhanging stone to smother its flickering rays. Be silent! I can hear footsteps approaching through the tunnel, growled Grigna in a hushed tone. Grigna nothing but screams to me. Alright, so that's my half page, so it's at the top.
Where did you end off?
Top of the... top. So
Right at the top.
you hear are the horses...
All that you hear are the horses corralled at the far end of the tunnel. That is a further sign that we are nearing our goal, she stated! Exclamation mark. All that you hear is less than I hear. I heard footsteps coming towards us. They're having their first fight. Isn't that cute?
This entire thing's been a fight. I'm gonna explore up here.
Silence yourself that we may find out whom we are being brought into contact with.
Hey, the
I
rain
doubt-
works everywhere here.
I doubt that any would have thought as yet of searching this passage for us. The advantage of surprise will be upon our side, Grigner warned. Carthena cast her eyes downward like a good girl, and ceased any further pursuit towards conversation.
No talking. Oh god, no, keep
Oh
going.
god. Oh god.
Don't hold out on me, Croshaw.
Jim, cards on my sleeve, thighs. Carthena cast her eyes downward and ceased any further pursuit towards conversation, an irritating habit in which she had gained an amazing proficiency. Two figures came into the pair's view from around a turn in the tunnel. They were clothed in rich, luxuriant silks, and rambled on in conversation, while ignorant of their crouching foes waiting in an ambush ahead. That barbarian dog is cringing beneath the weight of the lash at this moment, sire. He shall cause no more disturbance. Aye, and so it is with any who dare to cross the path of Sargon's chosen one, said the second man. But the peasants are showing signs of growing unrest. They complain that they cannot feed their families, while burdened with your taxes. I shall teach those sluts the meaning of humility.
What? Did he actually use the word sluts there?
Yep. Jim Thighs, I think, has some issues.
That's not even the right context for that.
Order an immediate increase upon their taxes. They dare to question my sovereign authority? Ha ha! They shall soon learn what true oppression can be. I will... ... A shadowed bulk leapt from behind a jutting promontory.
It's so good, it's so good.
My old priest had a jutting promontory. As it brought down a double-edged axe with the speed of a striking thought. One of the nobles sagged lifeless to the ground, skull split to the teeth. Ugh. You know, that's actually good writing on Jim Thighs' part.
Yeah.
That was a good, at the very evocative bit of language there. We found 5 good words out of this shit.
I just realized, like, how is this gonna end? I'm fucking thrilled. Like, I'm on the edge of my seat now.
Yeah, we're like a page away. Grigner gasped as he observed the bisected face set in its leering death agonies.
Well, that ruined it.
It was Agafund. The dead man's comrade, having recovered from his shock, drew a jewel-encrusted dagger from beneath the folds of his robe and lunged towards the barbarian's back. Grigner spun at the sound from behind.
Oh, there's a fucking ghost there.
And
That's what
smashed
gotcha.
down his crimsoned axe once more. Go from crimsoned axe there.
Crimson axe once more. His antagonist lunged, howling to a stream of stagnant green water, grasping a spouting stump that had once been a wrist. Grigner raised his axe over his head and prepared to finish the incomplete job, but was deterred halfway through his lunge by a frenzied screech from behind. Carthena leapt to the head of the writhing figure, plunging a smouldering torch into the agonized face.
I could have gone the back way, actually.
Jesus. Huh. Jesus fuck, they're going to town on this cunt.
Ah! Oh, damn it.
The howls increased in their horrid intensity, stifled by the sizzling of roasting flesh, then died down until the man was reduced to a blubbering mass of squirming, insensate flesh. Grigner advanced to Carthena's side, wincing slightly from the putrid aroma of charred flesh that rose in a puff of thick white smog throughout the chamber. Carthena reeled slightly, staring dazedly downward at her gruesome handiwork. I had to do it. It was Agathim. I had to. She exclaimed. All right. Sargon should be more careful of his right-hand men, added Grigner, a smug grin upon his lips. But to hell with Sargon now! The stench is becoming bothersome to me! With that, Grigner grasped Carthena around the waist, always.
And used his hook shot.
Yeah, leading her around the bend in the cave and into the open. A
This
ball...
female character lacks personal agency, for my liking.
like actual physical personal agency. A ball of feral red was rising through the mists of the eastern horizon, dissipating the slinking shadows of the night. A coral stood before the pair, enclosing 2 grazing mares. Grigner reached into a weighted-down leather pouch dangling at his side and drew forth the scintillant red emerald that he had obtained from the bloated idol. Raising it toward the sun, he said, "We shall do well with this bauble, eh?"
Is he Canadian now?
Apparently.
We shall do well with this bauble, eh?
Carthena gaped at the gem, gasping in a terrified manner. The Eye of Argon! Oh, Kala!
Oh, what?
Kala, K-A-L-L-A. Kala? I'm going Kala.
What?
Oh. At this, the gem gave off a blinding glow, then dribbled through Grigner's fingers in a slimy red ooze. Grigner stepped back, pushing Carthena behind him. The droplets of slime slowly converged into a pulsating, jelly-like mass. A single opening transfixed the blob.
Oh god, it's her period.
Forming into a leech-like maw. Then the hideous transgressor of nature flowed toward Grigner, a tail of greenish slime lingering behind it. The single gap puckered repeatedly, emitting a ghastly sucking sound.
So it's an asshole now.
This is, like, actually just turning into, his understanding of sex.
Hey.
This is intercourse. What the?
Here's a chum.
Oh. Okay. Grigner spread his legs into a battle stance, stealing his quivering thews for a battle royale with a thing he knew not how to fight.
Yeah, this whole scene is just an analogy for Jim Thies' understanding of sexual relations, isn't it?
Yeah, Carthena,
there have been clues throughout this entire story about how he thinks about women.
I mean, to be fair, 16 in the 70s, you didn't have, like, you know, the internet or even really porno mags to explain the vagina in much detail.
Well, you know, he's not trying to describe sex at this point. He's describing something that inadvertently seems to have taken on all the qualities.
But I think in that is the sort of... Excellent. Carthena wound her arms around her protector's neck, mumbling, "Kill it! Kill!" while her entire body trembled. Fuck, this is weird. The thing was almost upon Grigner when he buried his axe into the grisly maw.
Yeah, he's gonna be a much better fighter with a woman hanging off his neck.
Yeah, it's like, honey, I have to fight the blob creature now. Could you not be on my neck?
Tell you what, why don't you go make me and the blob creature a sandwich somewhere?
Grigner drew his axe back with a film of yellow-green slime clinging to the blade.
No, we didn't.
The thing was seemingly unaffected. Then it started to sluice up his leg. The hairs upon his nape stood on end from the slimy feel of the thing's booly bulk. The Nautus sucking sound became louder, and Grigner felt the blood being drawn from his body. With each hiss of hideous pucker, the thing increased in size. Oh, this is interesting. Grigner shook his foot about madly in an attempt to dislodge the blob, but it clung like a leech, still feeding upon his rapidly draining life fluid. He grasped with his hands,
There's
trying
that life fluid again. I remember the life fluid from the start. We've come full circle now.
Well, you know, that's a writing technique. He grasped with his hands, trying to rip it off, but only found his hands entangled in a sickly glue-like substance. The slimy thing continued its puckering, now having grown the size of Grigner's leg from its vampiric feast. Grigner began to reel and stagger under the blob, his chalk-white face and faltering muscles attesting to the gigantic loss of blood. Well, now it's blood.
Oh shit, it's the Looking Glass Knight.
Alright, I'll stop there. You can have the last paragraph, or do you want me to finish it?
No, I'm good.
Alright. Carthena slipped from Grigner in a death-like faint, a morrow-chilling scream upon her red, rubish lips. In final desperation, Grigner grasped the smouldering torch upon the ground and plunged it into the reeking maw of the travesty. A shudder passed through the thing. What was that?
That was a lightning attack.
Oh. Grigner felt the blackness closing upon his eyes, but held on with the last ebb of his rapidly waning vitality.
So it happened again.
He could feel its grip lessening as a hideous gurgling sound erupted from the writhing maw. The jelly-like mass began to bubble like a vat of boiling tar as quavers passed up and down its entire form.
Quavers?
Yeah.
I used to like those back in England.
Yeah, I was gonna... What were those?
They were a sort of maize snack. With a cheesy taste. Right, where were we?
Oh, the lost ending.
Ah, yes, the lost ending.
Wait, no, sorry, end of available copy. So transcriber's note.
Yeah, this is the transcriber's note. This is not Jim Mathias' writing. No mere transcription can give the true flavour of the original printing of the Eye of Argon. It was mimeographed with stencils cut on an elite manual typewriter.
Wow.
Many letters were so faint as to be barely readable, others were overstruck, and some that were to be removed never got painted out with correction fluid. Usually only one space separated sentences, while paragraphs were separated by a blank line and were indented 10 spaces. Many words were grotesquely hyphenated, and there were illustrations. I cannot do them justice in mere words, but they were a match for the text.
I need to see that.
These are the major losses of this version of the Eye of Argon. Otherwise, all effort has been made to retain the full and correct text, preserving even misspellings and dropped spaces. An excellent proofreader has checked it for errors both omitted and committed. What mismatches remain are mine. I shall endeavour to keep a copy of the original available for viewing, so it may be appreciated in all its fullness. But as a labour of love for those whose third-generation copies have now succumbed to the bitter vicissitudes of time and entropy, worn away by the ravages of Countell's rereadings before enthralling audiences, I think having a little funny at the story's expense. Yet to have found that the heady flavour of its stylistic paragraphs has seeped into their soul and still grips it with a fervid grasp, I dedicate this machine-readable version of the inimitable The Eye of Argon. So, the lost ending.
Fuck!
Oh, just in time for you.
I'm like, click, okay, target the guy behind me. No. Okay, rotate, target the guy. No.
Nope.
The lost ending.
Ha 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 ha, says the game.
With a sloshing plop, the thing fell to the ground, evaporating in a thick scarlet cloud until it reattained its original size. It remained thus for a moment, and the puckered maw took the shape of a protruding red eyeball.
I'll give you a puckered maw.
The pupil of which seemed to unravel before it in the tale of creation. How a shapeless mass slithered from the quagmires of the stigmatic pool of time only to degenerate into a leprosy of avaricious lust.
I'll give you a leprosy of avaricious lust.
What? In that fleeting moment, the grim mystery of life was revealed before Grigner's ensnared gaze.
What is this now?
I know!
Turn into 2001 A Space Odyssey.
This is... The eyeball's glare turned into a sudden plea of mercy, a plea for the whole of humanity. Then the blob began to quiver with violent convulsions. The eyeball shattered into 1,000 tiny fragments and evaporated.
Grigner became the Star Child.
Yeah. In a curdling wisp of scarlet mist. The very ground below the thing began to vibrate.
Oh, that was like a little rhyme.
And swallowed it up with a belch.
Swallowed it up with a belch? How do you swallow and belch at the same time? Like that.
The thing was gone forever. All that remained was a dark red blotch upon the face of the earth,
So wait,
blotching things up.
Why'd it go away?
It just... Gregna stabbed it in the face with a torch, and then it turned out to be like Blob Jesus, and... But all that remained was a dark red blotch upon the face of the earth, blotching things up. Shaking his head, his shaggy mane to clear the jumbled fragments of his mind, Grigna tossed the limp female over his shoulder, mounting one of the disgruntled mares and leading the other. The weary, scarred barbarian trooted slowly off into the horizon to become a tiny pinpoint in a filtered field of swirling blue mists,
I should have been a film director, Jim Thighs.
leaving the nobles, soldiers, and peasants to
You have
replace the missing monarch.
Such a visual writing style.
Last words. Long live the king. 3 exclamation points.
Long live the king.
Yes.
Indeed.
I will modify my opinion of it slightly on account of the fact that I thought this was maybe typed on a typewriter.
Ow.
Not like fucking... I really need to see the sort of, you know, the pictures and shit, and that would...
Well, I'm sure there's some scans online.
Yeah, I'm going to be looking that up in some of my spare time when I get home.
Good for you. Well, thus ends the Eye of Argon.
That was...
We should find something else stupid to read.